Hello everyone and welcome back to another episode of The Committee Reads. I am your host KWCs, and with me today I have Grayshot and Joe. And today,
run while you still can.
And today we will be unfortunate enough to look through Match 130, Kiryu and Zilla versus Orga by Thomas Fairchild. The United States National Institute Station 4, somewhere in Antarctica, which is really small text for some reason. Deadeye stared into the light, belonging to a pale man having frozen to death. He died in agony, the look of fear etched on his face. In front of him was a computer. It was a dated model, one past its prime. It was showing the dead man a simulation. Over and over, it showed the same thing in an endless loop. First, it showed him the double helix, then a bunch of human cells grouped next to each other, and then an unknown gray substance attacking and changing everything down to the cellular level. Dr. Blair ran down the corridor, panting. The cold air was unbearable. He could hardly breathe. Even with a younger, healthier body, he wouldn't have gotten far. Outside, he could hear the howling winds warning him of the coming storm. How long did he have now? 3 minutes? That still wasn't enough time. He ran past the dead man. Dr. Blair remembered insisting on giving him a proper burial. His colleagues, however, wanted to burn the body. None of them got what they wanted. So much happened in the last 10 minutes. Dr. Blair didn't know if he was the only one alive. He didn't know if he was infected or not. There was only one thing Dr. Blair did know. He had to warn everybody. Locating a radio device, Dr. Blair frantically turned its gears to the right frequency. When the red light turned on, signaling for him to speak, he couldn't find the right words. He couldn't even talk without rasping for air. Please, Dr. Blair coughed. This is a distress call from Station 4. We're under attack. This facility is no longer safe. We found something. I don't know what, but it's killed most of us. Please, send help. There was a loud tremor. Dr. Blair fell to the icy floors, but was quick to look in all directions. He couldn't see or hear anyone, but he did hear something. It was looming outside the walls. Dr. Blair stared out the window, catching a tiny glimpse of it. It was quiet, not unlike a predator stalking its prey. It was almost as if it had stopped just to listen in on his cries for help. Dr. Blair gripped the radio transmitter. Closing his eyes, he spoke his last words. My name is Dr. Blair. In the event of my death, I'd like my colleague and friend, Dr. Nick Tatopoulos, to investigate my findings here. He is the only one qualified to understand my work. Nick, if you're listening to this, trust no one. The ceiling crumbled. Dr. Blair looked up, not as a scientist, but as a man broken by forces beyond his understanding. A monstrous claw dropped from the heavens, blotting out the howling winds of snow, and scooped him into its gigantic palm. Sandy Point Military Base, New Jersey. It's one of the youngest military bases in the country. Shortly after the first Zilla attack in New York City, the higher brass in the United States chose a restricted area in New Jersey as its location to monitor Kaiju activity on the eastern seaboard. So far, it's yielded favorable results. Under the command of Major Hicks, it's kept America's borders safe, and as it is... So it is kept American borders safe? Alright, anyway. A blue minivan stopped at the checkpoint.
Truly the wall of the Atlantic.
Yes, truly.
Trump finally built his wall.
Gosh,
It's not where he wanted, but he built it.
Yeah, keep all them Europeans out. Anyway. A blue minivan stopped at the checkpoint. One guard stepped out to check the driver. 2 heavily armed guards circled the vehicle, ready to use deadly force if necessary. Rolling down the window, the driver introduced himself. I'm Nick Tatopoulos, Nick smiled. This is my research team, HEAT, and we're here to see Major Hicks." "Major Hicks is expecting you, sir," the guard responded. Nick saluted the soldier and drove into the heart of the military base. The guards watched the minivan leave before facing one another. "Goddamn tree-hugging hippies," one of them complained.
Tree humpers?
Yeah, right. One of them complained. "They love monsters more than their own people."
Not untrue.
The members of Heat were escorted into Sandy Point's headquarters. Walking through the halls, Nick thought about his teammates and their specialties, because we need an exposition dump. There was his longtime friend, Randy Hernandez, one of the best computer hackers in the world. Monique Dupre, an operative of the French Secret Service. Elsie Chapman, a biologist without equal. Mendel Craven, a specialist in electronics and robotics. And Nigel, an advanced robot designed specifically to go where the other members could not. In the study of mutations in giant organisms, they were the first research team everyone turned to for help. Nick fought hard to keep them together. He's had to turn down many offers from other reputable organizations like G-Force, Science Patrol, G-Graspers, Godzilla Prediction Network, Earth Defense Force, Crisis Control Intelligence, and many more. I felt like a good collaboration could have come out of Godzilla Prediction Network. Whatever.
But he doesn't like to humble brag. He's like, yeah, I've gotten offers from all these places, but I don't really want them. No.
Note to self: Heat GPN crossover. That's got to happen. Anyway.
Ooh, yeah.
Heat is where he belonged, and it's where he'll stay. He only hoped the others felt the same way. "Good to see you again, warm guy," said Major Hicks. "How are the worms doing?" "Oh, you know how it is, Major," Nick replied. "They keep getting bigger and bigger. Same old, same old." "Tell me about it," Major Hicks laughed, his smirk fading into a straight face. "Nick, I've contacted you because we have a serious problem." "Tell it to me straight," Nick asked. One of our bases in Antarctica was attacked not too long ago," Major Hicks revealed. "There are no survivors. All signs point to a giant monster being responsible." So you called us. Elsie butted in with an arrogant grin. "Good choice, Major." "That's not entirely true," Major Hicks said. "We called you because someone else recommended the worm guy to us. Nick, you're familiar with Dr. Blair, right?" "Yes," Nick answered. "He was one of my college professors." That's all Nick had to say. Major Hicks waited for more information. Unable to keep her mouth quiet, Elsie once again butted in. "Dr. Blair is one of the foremost biologists in the world," Elsie explained. "He's revolutionized our understanding of the origins of our species. He's our modern-day Charles Darwin. But he dropped..."
Nagoda's Charles Darwin? I should have known.
Hey, Nagoda.
Well, did Grisha just say the N-word?
Yes, he did. But he dropped out of the spotlight a few years ago after he openly suggested we're all descended from aliens. Last I heard, he went to Antarctica to continue his research. There was a long pause. Elsie thought about the last thing she said before showing concern. "Dr. Blair died in the attack," Major Hicks confirmed. "The Navy picked up a distress call from the late doctor himself." They listened to the recording of the transmission. Nick closed his eyes, picturing what it must have been like. When he heard the line go dead, Nick's eyes opened. Major Hicks explained how they sent in a rescue team a few days ago. They found signs of a giant monster attack. Since Dr. Blair suggested Nick by name, they thought they'd honored his last words. "But that's not all," Major Hicks quickly elaborated. "There's something else, something I'm not permitted to tell you. All you need to know is that you'll be accompanying a team sent in to investigate. I suggest you don't invite your giant reptile friend to the party. Not with these people joining you." The USS
shows up 5 minutes later.
Pretty much. USS Harry S. Truman, Ross Sea, Antarctica. Dark waters stretched out in all directions. Battleships waded through the sea. guarding the aircraft carrier at their center. In his winter coat, Nick watched them glide through the water. Snowflakes fell from the gray clouds above, sticking to his skin. Nick sighed as he leaned over the rail, wiping it off his face. He knew he shouldn't be outside, knowing he'd likely catch a cold. Knowing his actions were irrational, Nick remained in the company of the cold water. Knowing his actions were irrational, Nick remained...
fuck me, it's this match.
Yep. Nick remained in the company of the cold waters of the southern oceans. They helped him find solitude. But he wasn't alone. Monique? Nick sighed. You're losing your touch, you know. This time I knew you were there. Maybe because I wanted you to know, replied Monique.
Oh my god! Settle down, Weinstein.
Yeah! Replied Monique Dupre. She was being honest and straightforward. That's what got his attention. I take it you're not out here to have a little chat, Nick deduced. On the contrary, Monique smirked. I think a little chat is precisely what you need. Nick smiled before staring down at the cold waters. Monique walked over to his side, providing moral support. Somehow, she knew he was depressed. She knew he was still grieving. In her many years of the French Secret Service, Monique must have mastered the art of mind reading. Right? I wouldn't call it mind reading, Doctor, Monique said. More like face reading. Unbelievable. Nick knew he better get all his problems off his chest or else Monique might start becoming his therapist. It's Dr. Blair, Nick explained. He was my best college professor. He opened my eyes. He helped me see just how incredible everything is. Together, we helped shed light on mysteries no other scientist would have ever solved. He was like a father to me.
I think R.J. McCready would have been a better father.
I take it.
We all know Wilfred Brimley's not a good father.
We also got drunk this one time and, got arrested by the cops. It's a real bonding moment between me and my professor.
I take it things weren't perfect? No, far from it, Nick admitted. As a scientist, I pursued nothing but the truth. So did he. But we had a falling out after I confessed I don't think we'll ever know everything. He took this a different way. He thought I meant we shouldn't know everything. Should we? Monique inquired. Nick's voice deepened. I believe we're byproducts of our own environment. If that's all there is, that's all we'll ever know. You didn't answer my question. Because it can't be answered, Nick replied. That's the honest truth. And if the truth isn't enough, nothing ever will be. Well, it looks like you two lovebirds are having a good time, Elsie joked as she walked over to join them. Why wasn't I invited? Nick looked over at Monique, waiting for her to give a witty answer. Don't look at me, Monique smiled. I didn't hear her coming.
Damn.
Elsie didn't need an answer. She could see what was really troubling Nick. Many people think scientists aren't capable of expressing emotion. Okay. It's just pure logic.
No. I let me tell you something. People in the science community are the first ones that'll just go full emotional breakdown on you.
Oh yeah,
because they're stuck in a room of logic for 24 hours a day. The moment they can drop some emotion, they will pour it down upon you.
Man, Tom must think scientists are like Vulcans.
I think that's the media's interpretation. Scientists are Vulcans. They do not have emotions.
This really reminds me of an episode of Star Trek.
Don't go Mike on me. So, in the meantime, they forgot scientists are people too. Contrary to what her sense of humor would lead most to believe, Elsie is the most empathetic member of Heat. Thank you for telling me that story. In earnest, Elsie helped Nick in the best way she knew how. I'm sorry about Dr. Blair, Nick. I know you two were close, but you shouldn't feel guilty about his death. He made the choice to stop being your friend, not you. Nick was silent. Is that what's troubling him? Did he feel guilt for Dr. Blair's untimely demise? If he had sided with his friend and mentor, would he have been resigned to this place and met a similar fate? Alarms sounded across the fleet. Nick, Monique, and Elsie were instructed to report back to the main deck. Before walking inside, Nick looked overboard and saw his reflection in the water. If Dr. Blair's endeavors got him killed, how long did he have to survive? And I'll pass it on to Grayshot.
Antarctica. Not a bit confused with any other location. It took hours for Heat to make landfall. Perfect coordination, timing, and luck made sure their arrival was a safe one. Nick made a mental note to personally thank the company of soldiers sent to protect him with their lives. He was also thankful Major Hicks elected to join them. Why didn't we take a helicopter again? Randy asked furiously. Being stuck on a boat for a few weeks was starting to get the better of him. Randy? Craven lectured. They told us in the briefing the winds were too dangerous to fly a helicopter through, so we have to rely on a boat. Judging by how we got here safe and sound, I'd say they know what they were talking about. Nick knew Randy wouldn't let Craven get the last word, but Major Hicks motioned them to clamp down. With the storm dispensing, they had a shot at getting to where they needed to be. Time wasn't on their side, so they would need to move quickly. Can you mute yourself, Alex?
Oh, Alex, we can hear you chewing your food.
Yeah, thanks, man.
All right.
I can hear you fapping.
Yes. They all hoped on...
Hopped.
They all hopped... Sorry, I lost my track. I was like, was that right there? They all hopped on their snowmobiles and took off as one big group. Leaning over his shoulder, Elsie asks Nick an important question. So where are the folks who, wouldn't have liked our pet iguana to crash the party? Let's hope we find out soon, Nick replied. Elsie wasn't as optimistic. Or not at all. Station 4 was in ruins. Save for the mass destruction, there was no sign of a giant monster rampage. If Dr. Blair intended for Nick to carry on his research, there had to be another level beneath the surface. There had to be something he could use to determine what did this and how to stop it. According to their blueprints, Nick and the other members of Heat found themselves entering the room Dr. Blair was last in. This is where he died, Nick realized. Where there should have been a ceiling, gray clouds filled Nick's line of sight. Where there should have been walls, fields of snow and ice filled the backdrop. There was nothing left from here. There was nothing left to salvage. With her teammates wasted time sulking, Monique snuck away from her guards and located Major Hicks. He was entering a strange passageway leading to an underground facility. Security was too tight. She wouldn't be able to enter without being seen. A pistol pressed against the back of her head. Monique almost gasped in surprise. She didn't think anyone could sneak up on her. These Americans have made you soft, Monique, a voice from her past warned. With lightning precision, Monique spun around, kicked the gun out of her assailant's hand, and moved in to sever his jugular. Shocked by his identity, she stopped in her tracks. Philip Roche glared at his former pupil, disappointed by how her skills had declined. The Frenchman that once worked closely with Nick Totopoulos during the first Zilla's attack in New York City. After that crisis ended, Philip ordered Monique to keep a very close watch on Nick and Zilla's offspring. He disappeared shortly thereafter. Monique wasn't privy to the reasons why. Philippe, Monique gasped. I see you're working with the Americans now.
Well, John Renault was here.
Listen, minus Godzilla, he's a good actor. He gets work done. He's probably just doing a movie in Antarctica at the moment.
Yeah.
Ah.
No.
It's probably or maybe they're filming Godzilla too. Who knows? Surprise!
No.
I've seen John Renault's portfolio. He doesn't pick the best movies.
What? There was one he was really good in. It was the one with the girl. Huh?
Is it one?
Yeah.
What's the movie called?
I'm
Exactly.
blanking on it, but it's a good movie. Okay. Now, back to the match. You shouldn't be here, Monique, he grumbled. You've already seen too much. So are you going to kill me? You're welcome to try. Philip said nothing. For a moment, Monique thought her bluff worked. Suddenly, her legs were kicked out from under her, and she found herself pinned to the icy floor. Philip pressed a knife against her carotid artery. You insisted I try, he whispered. Monique smiled. She motioned for Philip to look down, where she was holding a knife up to his crotch. It was a very unpleasant situation for both. Philip favored his time with a grin. Philippe, Nick shouted. Let her go, now! Philip looked over, seeing Nick and the members of Heat frowning at him. In honor of their past friendship, Philip obeyed. He offered his hand to pull Monique to her feet. She refused.
Hey, wait a minute. He spelled there wrong.
It all sucks now.
She refused his request, choosing to stand on her own. It is good to see you again, my old friend, Philip said to Nick. Your company has been sorely missed. I wish I could say the same, Nick retorted. Not when you're abusing a member of my team. Is that what she is? Philippe said. My apologies. Who the hell is this guy? Randy asked. Look, what we have here, Elsie chimed in, looks like the old gang is back together again. Dozens of soldiers surrounded them, guns raised. Philip wasn't afraid. Like a commander, he walked over and ordered them to put Heat into protective custody. Enraged Nick demanded answers. What the hell is going on, Agent Roach? Major Hicks hollered. Soldiers, stand down. These people are on our side. Apologies, Major, replied Philip. I only wanted to make a point. Looks like you've made it, Major Hicks responded. Nick, you have no right seeing any of this. Are you serious, Nick roared? Did you really think we wouldn't have found out about your hidden passages sooner or later? We saw it. It's done. So you either tell us what we need to know or we'll find out on our own. Decide. Major Hicks locked eyes with the young scientist. Philip nodded in approval, impressed by Nick's bravery. Apologies. Realizing there was nothing else they could do, Major Hicks relented. What you're about to see is top secret, but since you're here to carry on Dr. Blair's work, I can give you access without losing my job, Major Hicks sighed. I hope. Guiding them into the entrance to an underground complex, Elsie moved to walk side by side with Monique. Monique was reluctant to accept her company. So first we learned a bit about Nick's former mentor. Now we meet yours, Elsie pointed out. Who's next? Are we going to find out who Craven was raised by goats? Okay, that's good.
Yeah, that was actually kind of good.
Yeah. Okay, to be fair, they would be the fainting goats. They would be the fainting goats.
Yes, the fainting goats.
Philip was more than just a mentor to me, Monique lowered her voice. He and I were once engaged.
Huh? Okay.
Okay, I dislike that, but okay.
It sounds like past Tom didn't know how to write women.
Wait. They're both French, so they have to be together.
No,
Those Frenchies have to stick together.
Dick blasted.
Also, I'm not sure why Monique would say that. This very much seems out of Monique's character for her to say this.
Agreed.
Like, why would she? Why she would not be the one that says this? Like, I think the situation would be like Philip is undercover and like pretends that they're engaged, and she like seems extremely off foot. So Randy would be the one that kind of figures it out.
Yeah.
Then I was like, "Did you two actually have something?" And Monique would be like, of course not." And then Randy would be like, "Oh, you do." So I'm just saying, Red's characters. Oh no. But in any case, back to the match. Wow, was all else he could say. I never thought you two were so close. Monique finished. I thought we were, but he didn't see it that way. He had other ideas. Okay, so Monique's the one that's starved for attention. Okay, sure. Let's. In the back of her mind, Monique hoped nobody overheard them talking. Okay. Returning her focus to her surroundings, Monique saw a very large room unfold around them. It had to be larger than 3 football fields. There was a gaping hole in the ceiling. Snow fell from the sky, falling on a strange vessel at the center. Its silvery surface was so clear it would have looked invisible amidst its surroundings were it not for its hull being ripped open from the inside. Tubes and machines attached to it continued to monitor its molecular structure. Nick recognized the craft instantly. That's the Millennium UFO, he gasped. Nick recalled how an alien craft attacked Japan in 1999. It spawned a horrible monster. One that was destroyed by Godzilla. According to Yuji Shinada, founder of the Godzilla Prediction Network, the Millennium UFO crashed on Earth long before the dinosaurs. It waited at the bottom of the ocean before sunlight revived it. Major Hicks couldn't hide his guilt. This did not go unnoticed. Care to explain your involvement in all this, Major? Major, Nick stuttered, unable to hide the tension in his voice. Major Hicks was his friend. First Dr. Blair was killed, and now Hicks was experimenting on alien crafts. Again? Dude, tell me you're not being mind-controlled again, Randy said. My thoughts exactly, Elsie agreed. You're one to talk, Craven mumbled, knowing Elsie would glare at him. Oh well, at least Elsie was looking at him. Look, Major Hicks explained.
He's desperate.
Shortly after being demoted for going soft on your pet reptile, I received this assignment. American, Japanese, and French stations picked up a signal emanating from this exact location. Working together, we uncovered this UFO. It's unlike anything we've ever seen before. The fact another one exactly like it attacked Tokyo months later made this a top priority to the pencil pushers back at the Pentagon. So they replaced me with an expert. You know him as Dr. Blair. Nick scoffed at the idea. Dr. Blair was working for the government. Then why, at this last wish, would he want Nick to be brought here? When they last met, Nick was anti-government. He was part of every major protest in the country. This helped him get recognition, and also helped him get recruited by the government on this first giant monster assignment. Perhaps Dr. Blair had done his homework and knew all about Nick's new profession. Monique leaned close enough for just Philippe to hear. So how are you opposed to all this? Dealing with aliens is my expertise, not yours. This was a joint operation between 3 countries. Our government needed someone they could trust to oversee the project, Philippe smirked. So they sent me. Monique looked away from him, concealing her true feelings. Try as she might, Philippe could see she was nursing more than just her wounded ego. My voice is getting a little raspy, guys, so I'm going to pass this.
Damn.
All right, Nagoda, you're up.
Okay, so
what did the doctor really want?
Elsie wondered.
I forgot how good Nagoda was at voices. Thank you.
We all know.
Sorry.
We all know about his fall from grace. I'm assuming y'all did as well. So why recruit someone who was, sorry to say, unstable?
Major Hicks shrugged. Look, despite his shortcomings, Dr. Blair was the best at what he did. He did a lot of work down here. Good work.
But
Elsie countered. It looks like he was right, Major Hicks revealed. Nobody knew what that meant. Before the truth could be given, gunfire erupted from the surface. Major Hicks motioned for Philippe and his men and his soldiers to move up to provide support. One of his soldiers tried establishing radio contact. They only heard screams, gunfire, and then static. Nick and the other members of Heat rushed to the surface. When they got there, no structure was left standing. Man, it's a good thing they went underground then. Dozens of soldiers were taking cover in the rubble and ice, firing at a 180-foot giant obscured by a blizzard. Wait, is that accurate? At the time?
The,
Eh. 2 soldiers bazooka. Within seconds, they were loaded up.
Oh, yeah, that would have been
and
accurate. 60 meters, 180 feet. Yeah, that would have been accurate.
Wow. That's good, at least. The rocket left a trail of smoke as it pierced the haze, finding its hidden target. It made a loud, distinct boom. All it did was agitate the monster. Orga emerged out of the blizzard, shrieking like an enraged god. It had the demented body structure of a gorilla. Its putrid, gray flesh steamed the cold air. Its yellow eyes glowed ominously. Orga's needle-like teeth dripped with hissing spit. There was a large divot in its left shoulder resembling the mouth of a volcano. Orga's most distinguished feature was its large, serrated claws. They could ravage a mountain if given the chance. In a motion of speed that belied its size, Orga swiped at a group of huddled soldiers and sent their mangled remains sailing into the snowstorm. Philippe sprinted in range and shot at Orga's eyes. It was an unusual thing to see, a lone operative firing a pistol at a godlike creature. Philippe was either crazy or the bravest man on the planet. A shadow fell over him. Orga moved to crush the human with his claws, but Monique pushed Philippe out of the way with only seconds to spare. Orga's claws fractured the icy soil, tossing the tiny humans up in its wake. Philippe caught Monique in the air and used his own body as a cushion for her to fall on. It knocked the wind out of him. Orga bent down, drooling at the sight of his next meal. Nick ran over, flailing his arms to distract the alien menace. It worked, like all the other times he did it. Nick quickly thought about his chances of survival. 30, maybe 40 yards separated him from the beast. That was plenty of time for him to reflect on his life, right? There was a loud rumble. Nick felt the ice beneath him rip and tear. That's when a large reptilian head burst out of the ground between him and Orga. His dorsal spines, swishing tail, and distinct roar made Nick smile. Like many other so-called monsters, Zilla was the offspring of mankind's nuclear ambitions. Nick used to march against the testing of radiation. Now there's the new field of science. Many critics believe giant monsters are living proof the theories of evolution and natural selection are a farce. If anything, it's the opposite. Evolution personifies change. Instead of going extinct, creatures like Zilla adapted and sparked a new race. They're living proof life will always find a way. Zilla dug his claws. Zilla dug his claws into Orga's armored hide, pushing the gray Goliath back. Didn't know Goliath was in this match. Orga stopped Zilla in his tracks, snatching Zilla's abdomen with his claws. The giant reptile slid across the icy tundra, clawing to his feet. He wasn't fast enough. Orga jumped high into the air, stomping his bulk into Zilla. Both monsters broke through the ice, consumed by geysers of cold water. Nick wanted to stay and provide moral support. Elsie and Randy's arms grabbed him from behind, pulling him into the underground base.
Nick, we can't stay here,
Elsie explained. She's right, F.A., Randy assured him. Time to go down and spend some quality time with the UFO.
Okay.
Swirling lights glowed through the surface. Zilla was blasted through the ice by Orga's energy blast and fell thousands of feet before landing on a snow-covered hill. An explosion of ice and cold air enveloped the fallen reptile. Orga pulled itself out of the water, smoke sizzling out of its cannon-shaped shoulder. The deformed alien could hear the giant reptile's heartbeat. Zilla was still alive. Orga would have to change that. Using his powerful hind legs, Orga jumped like a giant frog and pounced on Zilla's weakened body. Orga's bloodlust made the alien go berserk. It clobbered Zilla with his claws, rendering flesh and bone. Zilla recuperated fast enough to charge up his power breath. Thermonuclear fire seared out of his jaws, throwing Orga off of him. Smoke sizzled off Orga's burnt, dangling flesh. Within seconds, Orga's healing factor erased the burns that would have proven fatal. Zilla was more fearful of his opponents than ever now. How could he inflict permanent damage? Blowing steam out of his nostrils, Zilla was determined to find a way. Because life always finds a way. The survivors of Orga's attack retreated back down near the Millennium UFO. Major Higgs was shouting orders left and right, trying to contact a group Nick wasn't privy to. Distant tremors shook the icy walls, threatening to bury them with the alien craft. Randy rushed over to Monique, offering his support. You doing okay? That's too deep a voice. She looked over at Philippe. He felt her eyes on him, but didn't look back. Fine, I'm fine. What?
Oh, this is different,
Elsie shouted. Everyone ran over to Elsie. She was standing in front of the Millennium UFO, hands outstretched. I don't understand, Major Higgs said. Can't you feel the heat? Nick replied. No pun intended. Oh, I skipped this. Randy couldn't resist.
Damn.
Nick frowned at his friend. It's the UFO. It's emitting heat. Why? It's all too much to be a coincidence.
Not that we can believe in coincidences,
Elsie clarified. Stop beating around the bush, Major Higgs ordered. If you think you know something, spill it.
Okay,
Mumbled Elsie. Clearing her throat, she explained her theory. Ahem.
Well, the Millennium UFO is solar-powered. It needed sunlight to operate. Whatever it has from it made a nice sunroof. Of course, this is Antarctica we're talking about. Sunlight is very scarce this time of year, so it must have taken time for it to reboot. When it did, it sent a signal to little Cloverfield up there, and you all know the rest.
Didn't know Cloverfield was in here, too. Brilliant deduction, Dr. Can anyone do an Elvis voice real quick?
I don't know. You just keep
I
doing,
cannot attempt it.
you just do your thing, Nagoda. It'll work out fine.
Brilliant deduction, Dr. Chapman, Philippe said. But it's still emanating heat, which means it's still communicating with the Orga creature. How do we stop it from transmitting? Major Hicks wanted to know. Mendel Craven had an idea.
The UFO must be using an electromagnetic.
Wait, wrong voice. I'll just talk normal. The UFO must be using an electromagnetic frequency. I'll have Nigel hack into its frequency and disable it. Whoa, Randy muttered. Did you just say my calling card hack? That's my specialty, Doc. Nonsense, Craven replied to hide his ego. Sit back and watch a real master at work. With his controller stick, Craven ordered Nigel to hack the Millennium UFO's mainframe. On its tractors, the robot moved to fulfill its programming. Craven's triumphant expression was shattered, however, when the robot started singing. I really don't want to sing. Can anyone want to sing?
Start singing.
And the Jay-Z song was on. Jay-Z song was on. Jay-Z song was on.
Nigel screamed at full volume.
Yeah.
So I put my hands up there playing my song. The butterflies fly away. Nodding my head like yeah. Moving my hips like yeah. It's a party in the USA.
I don't think Tom knows how to write black people as well.
I think that's Party
That's a
in
Miley Cyrus song.
Isn't that Party in the USA? Hold on, let me look
Yeah.
this up.
It probably
Yeah,
is.
it is.
I don't know the song. I don't know how to sing it. I just went with it.
Yeah, it's Party in the USA by Miley Cyrus.
All right.
Oh, and the
Yeah, we're gonna get
Jay-Z
copyright strike
song
now.
was
And
on.
the Jay-Z song is on. And the Jay-Z song is on.
What the fuck?
Let's continue. Points made.
Okay, let's continue before we get copyright strike.
Miley Cyrus
Craven's
comes down
cheeks.
from the heavens and kills us.
Craven's cheeks burned red. To avoid all the awkward glances, he desperately tried reprogramming Nigel.
Seriously, Randy?
Elsie criticized.
I know how you like hacking into that dingy robot, but having it sing a Miley Cyrus song? That's really shallow.
Hey, I didn't do it this time. Don't get me wrong. I'm flattered, Randy admitted. But I'm not the one to blame here, which means... Craven avoided eye contact like his life depended on it. Stupid iTunes transferring my favorite songs to Nigel without my consent. He screamed. Stupid.
Okay, that I actually approve.
Yeah. Okay. You know what? Yeah. That's nice. That's a nice spin.
Nick rolled his eyes. Okay, Craven and Randy will work on trying to disrupt the UFO's connection with Orga, which means the rest of us will have to help Zilla. And how are we supposed to do that? Philippe asked. Nick concentrated for a moment. Major, you once ran this operation. Is there anything you're not telling us? I was replaced, remember? Major Hicks replied defensively. So whatever information I had to offer is moot. Not entirely true, Major, Philippe revealed. Major Hicks frowned at Philippe, discouraging him from talking. Nick confronted him by getting in his face. Major Hicks thought about having him detained, but decided friendship was more important, because apparently friendship is the ultimate power here. Backup is on its way, Major Hicks said. That's the good news. What's the bad news? Nick asked. Zilla hopped onto Orga's back, biting its head. Orga thrashed to get the giant iguana off. Zilla made sure to bite deep. However, there was no blood to taste. Orga took advantage of Zilla's confusion by tossing him off. Zilla bounced off the icy terrain, dorsal spines flashing. Looking to distract his prey, Orga's jawbone snapped out of alignment. Taken aback, Zilla delayed the fearsome beast. Orga used his time wisely by stretching his mouth so wide it could swallow Zilla whole. That was certainly Orga's intent. With its supersized maw slobbering in anticipation, Orga waited for Zilla to come to him. Zilla was a cognitive creature, capable of exhibiting and understanding emotion.
He's a thinking animal.
Basically.
Yes. He could also see a trap when it was staring him in the face. I'll just pass here. Pass.
Thermonuclear fire scorched Orga's entire body. Somewhere amidst the Emerald Inferno, Orga screamed for the pain to stop. Zilla's flames faded into smoke, steaming the cold air. Orga's charred carcass was writhing in a pool of churning water, the ice underneath him melting. Zilla moved closer, wary of the wounded alien. Even with its eyes burnt out, Orga tilted its head as if it could still see Zilla. Finally, the ice melted, and Orga disappeared beneath the churning waves. Zilla kept his distance. He crouched close enough to see Orga's bubbling mass reconstituting. That's when the mighty reptile heard footprints racing through the ice. Zilla spotted Nick Tunafish, his surrogate father, running to meet him, looking worried. Back away, back away, Nick screamed. Zilla, leave, get out of here now. Understanding Nick's plight, Zilla stepped back to leave. Suddenly, Orga's twisted bulk burst forth out of the water, his maw several times larger than it was before. There was no time for Zilla to brace himself. Nick watched in horror as Orga swallowed Zilla's entire upper body, restraining the animal in place with its needle-like teeth. Zilla couldn't break free, even with his tremendous strength. Zilla's spines lit up as he prepared to unleash his fiery breath, but Orga's jaws were binding down too hard, cutting off the circulation of Zilla's atomic power. All Nick could do was watch helplessly. Squeezing his fists, Nick tried figuring out a solution. He's a brilliant scientist, one with years of experience fighting giant creatures. Surely he had some backup plan to save Zilla, but he had none. There was a distant booming sound. Nick spun around to face the source, shocked to see a missile streaking through the air. It struck Orga in the face, engulfing it in a ball of fire. Orga snapped its teeth out of Zilla's flesh, surprised by this unexpected attack. More and more missiles shot into its gray hide, exploding in great balls of fire and smoke. In order to assimilate Zilla's flesh, Orga needed to concentrate. He couldn't with these missiles hitting him, and so his jaws and neck muscles relented in their attempts to swallow Zilla whole, freeing him just enough for the giant reptile to retaliate. Thermonuclear fire burned Orga's insides. Zilla backed out of Orga's maw, torching the insidious alien with his green flames. With its form shrouded in crackling flames, Orga cried out. Its ear-piercing screams made Nick resentful. No animal, be it terrestrial or extraterrestrial, deserved to die in so much pain. With its powerful legs, Orga hopped thousands of feet away, obscured by the coming storm. Zilla thought about chasing the wounded alien, knowing it was still a threat to the entire world, but he sensed the presence of another giant. And with his father here, Zilla chose to stay behind him to protect him. Nick squinted through the howling winds. He could see something standing in the fog. It was about the size of Zilla, maybe a little larger. The yellow-hued eyes pierced the veil of the fog. Remembering how it fired missiles, Nick suspected it was a giant robot, and he was right. Kiryu marched out of the fog, intimidating Zilla with its fearlessness. Beneath layers of armored metal, grinding hydraulics, whirling machines, and electrical currents, Zilla sensed life somewhere in Kiryu. It was not completely artificial. It was, however, his enemy. Kiryu took another step, threatening Zilla with its digital shriek. Zilla gritted his teeth. Holy.
He did something with his teeth. What exactly he did? Not sure.
Zilla bit his teeth. ready to defend himself. Zilla, get out of there! Nick shouted, knowing it would be a death sentence for Zilla if he attacked a military unit of any kind. Zilla listened to his human father. Clawing at the icy surface, Zilla burrowed away to safety. Kiryu continued its march, stepping right in front of Nick. It was an imposing sight. Nick prayed Kiryu's controller knew he was there, or he'd be squashed. Kiryu looked down at the tiny human, its eyes glowing like two miniature suns. A wise decision, Dr. Totopoulos. Kiryu's pilot spoke out in a hidden speaker. It was a feminine voice, belonging to one of the world's greatest pilots. A door opened in one of Kiryu's ankles, leaving Kiryu on lockdown. Its pilot ventured out into the freezing cold to greet Nick. "Who are you?" Nick asked. "My name is Akane Yashiro." She introduced herself formally. "I am the pilot of the Kaiju fighting machine, Kiryu." Nick wanted to punch Major Hicks in the face, but deep down, he knew the Major wasn't to blame. He risked everything by telling Nick the truth. That didn't mean Nick had to like it. "So let me get this straight," Randy said. "You're telling me the pencil pushers at the Pentagon wanted Zilla and Orga to fight. They knew it would have absorbed Zilla's DNA and transformed it into an unstoppable monster? And they knew it had to turn its mouth into a giant vagina. Randy?" Elsie shouted. "To do it?" He finished. "My orders were clear." "My orders were clear," Major Hicks grumbled. "I don't like it as much as you do."
No, I don't believe they were clear. We're gonna need to run through.
And
Yeah,
what's
no,
wrong with...
More than confident, yeah. I'm pretty sure that was the whole point. That was like, oh, things are kind of fuzzy. Unless he was lying the whole time.
I knew it.
Quick, get a checkup. How many times did he say honestly?
"That's bullshit, Major," Dick retorted. "Watch your tone, worm guy," Major Hicks fired back. "I respect you, but if you ever talk to me like that again, you and your people will be detained." "Why, Major?" Nick asked. "Why would they want to make Orga stronger? Why would they want to endanger the entire world?" "That's why we negotiated with Kiryu to come and assist us," Major Hicks replied. "We had Kiryu hidden in one of those ships that brought us here." Nick sighed. "This is all ridiculous." While Nick and Major Hicks were too busy arguing, Monique greeted Akane warmly. "It is good to see you again." Not long after saving Japan from Godzilla, Akane was transferred to America to improve her skills. She met Heat and even joined them on a few of their assignments. On these assignments, she met Monique Dupar. After forming a bond with the French operative, Akane kept close ties with her new friend even after returning to Japan to protect it as Kiryu's pilot. "Likewise, Monique," Akane bowed. "I'm sorry for all the secrecy. I didn't know you and your team were here. My government wanted both a diplomat and a soldier to represent our people, so they sent me." "I understand. Today has been full of surprises, in fact." Monique glanced at Philip. "It's been more like a reunion." Akane nodded in understanding. She was easily one of the most empathetic people Monique ever met. Monique was certain Akane and Elsie Chapman would have liked each other, but she wasn't the type to introduce people. Her former job was to do the opposite in ways that would make people sick. Regardless, Akane saw her as a good friend and treated her as such. Monique, likewise, was happy to see her. Graven went up to Elsie, typing in his handheld computer pad. Every program Nigel did try and interface with the UFO system, he bragged. It's a long shot, but I'm positive we can sever all communication has to Orga. Since when did you become so useful? Elsie smiled. Oblivious to the insult, Craven blushed. All he would remember from this was how Elsie smiled at him. Squeaking to life, Nigel rolled over to the UFO to try and establish contact. Meanwhile, Nick was piecing the puzzle together. We're here to bring closure to Dr. Blair's work, Nick clarified. Instead, we found ourselves trapped in a conspiracy. Make no mistake, there's a connection between this conspiracy and Dr. Blair's work. Now I want to know the real reason why we're here. That's a lot to swallow, worm guy, Major Hicks responded honestly. And here I thought you were a scientist. You sound more like a conspiracy theorist. What if I'm right? Then for our sakes, we better find an answer and fast. Nick? Elsie waved for him to come over. We found something. Nick walked over to them, needing to reach his commanding officers. Major Hick motioned for Philip to keep an eye on him. As a seasoned veteran for the French Secret Service, Philip still wasn't keen on showing loyalty to the American government. But Major Hicks earned his respect, and like Philip, was a professional. What is it, Elsie? Nick inquired. Craven answered for her. Nigel just made contact with the Millennium UFO. Have you disabled its link with Orga? Well, yes and no. Craven coughed. I know that's not a real answer, but let me explain. We, got more than we expected. The UFO uploaded information about itself into Nigel. It almost looked like it was trying to hack into us, too. Why would it hack Nigel and give us information about it? That makes sense, I guess, Elsie theorized. We're talking about an alien life form that assimilates other life forms, that involves an exchange of information in some form or another, so it follows a similar pattern when it bonds with electronics. Does it have any useful information? Philip asked. So far, it's shown us diagrams of familiar genetic codes, Elsie answered. It has the information on our DNA. I even saw Godzilla's DNA once or twice. It seems to be giving us a list of every known creature it's bonded with. It then gives us data on multi-celled and single-celled organisms. Now here's what I find very fascinating, she grinned. If I'm looking at these diagrams correctly, it's showing us what our ancient ancestors look like down to the genetic level. It's showing us the very first single-celled organisms. When people think about their ancestors, they usually think about their great-grandparents, or George Washington, or a medieval knight. When scientists talk about human ancestry, they're not talking about the Romans or the Greeks. They're talking about ancient fish. But even some scientists forget how all life on the planet is connected. Ancient single-celled organisms, ones that existed billions of years ago, were the principal ancestors of humankind and every other life form on Earth existing today. But the single-celled organisms existing today are not the same ones that existed eons ago. Evolution and natural selection and time changed all of that. So it's very difficult for scientists to study organisms that no longer exist. There are, however, clues of their existence, but it's not enough to answer the most important question experts have not been able to answer. What caused life on Earth to exist? And it shows us that what spawned the first life forms. Elsie revealed in excitement. It's the race this millennium belongs to. She wasn't worried about the outcry news that like this would generate. She didn't care how many people would deny the truth in exchange of superstition. Elsie Chapman searched for the truth all her life, and at long last, she found it. So, we're all related to Orga? Randy stopped laughing when he realized no one else was. Nick accepted this information. This is what Hicks meant when he told us Dr. Blair was right. Blair believed aliens were the predecessors of all Earth life. This millennial race may not be responsible for spawning all life on Earth, but does appear to be our main ancestor. Not so fast, guys, Craven interjected. This is just data it has on all of us. There's a reason why it's tried bonding with Zilla, right? Genetic model is outdated. Elsie added to Craven's observation. It's trying to catch up with its descendants. What better way to do that than take their greatest strengths and eliminate the competition? Do you think the government knows this? Nick asked quietly. If so, why send us? Why make this thing stronger? Why put your entire race in jeopardy? Hey, worm guy, Major Hicks shouted. Check this out. Nick and the others ran over. To help shed light on the situation, Akane showed them her previous encounter with Orga. Major Hicks' soldiers finished assembling a computer station. They inserted a disk Akane brought with her. Accessing its video files, Nick and the others found out what it was like to be staring through the eyes of Kiryu. Pass.
Alright, Alex, you're up.
Oh, Jesus.
Descending through the fog.
Okay, give me a second.
Right.
Lisa fell asleep.
Jeez.
Okay, I'm not gonna lie. I'm just gonna come in real quick. Can anyone else make note that the conspiracy has been a very...
Wait, what?
Wait, what?
The conspiracy so far?
What about it?
Not a very compelling part of this?
Yeah,
Yep.
I'm kind of with you. It's like...
I mean, this whole thing compelled me to sleep.
It's doing something at least.
I felt like I was doing a presentation in front of my history class.
Dude, that's what it sounded like when you guys were reading.
Golly, no kidding.
Well, we tried.
Yeah.
Did we get an A, guys? Did we get an A?
I think we got an F since I fell asleep.
Damn it.
Descending through the fog, Kiryu couldn't see where he was going. Nick could hear Akane's voice over comlink, telling her compatriots she was switching to night vision. But that only made things harder to see. She switched to infrared. Again, it didn't make things easier. Finally, Akane settled with a combination of all the previous visions. This would make a really neat ride, Randy choked. His teammates shushed into silence. He was right, though. Seeing the world through Kiryu's perspective was exciting. Kiryu broke through the fog coverage and found it clinging to land. Computer sensors scanned the terrain, pinpointing the best place to land, and whether or not it could support the robot's weight. Kiryu found a nice spot, touching down on Antarctica. Nick heard its rocket thrusters die down as it scanned the perimeter. There were no signs of intelligent life. Yeah, because the whole heat team is there. Cold winds froze its eyes, forcing Kiryu to heat up its optics. To make it easier for him to see, Kiryu turned to its left just in time to see a massive cock strike it in the face. Kiryu's world spun around and before he crashed into a hill, Kiryu rose out of the ice, quick to look for its attacker. Glancing down at his arm, Kiryu's electric saber slit out of its arm and pulsated with energy. Kiryu's sensors detected an abnormal life sign in its vicinity. Kiryu located it. It was crouching in the ice not too far away. It was Orga. Kiryu wasted no time. He fired its missiles, enveloping Orga and the area around him in a sea of fire. Orga screamed as it wadded through the missile sapple. Kiryu guarded himself by holding Orga's head back with one hand while thrusting its electric saber into its vile neck with the other. Kiryu pumped hundreds of millions of volts of electricity to Orga. Screaming like a wounded beast, Orga hit Kiryu so hard he flipped straight up into the air. With his rocket boosters rumbling to life, Kiryu hovered hundreds of meters above the alien. Its maser and electric beam emitted from its mouth. Launched into its gray eye, Kiryu's missiles and laser cannons fall suit, blasting and bombarding Orga where he stood. But this tremendous display of firepower succeeded in concealing Orga's whereabouts. Kiryu ceased fire just in time to see Orga leap up, swatting Kiryu out of the sky like a fly. Kiryu saw the ground and the sky spin as he fell. This totally just went Blair Witch on us, Randy complained, searching for a barf back for the shitty early 2000s joke he made. Kiryu hit the ground with a loud thud. For a second, Kiryu was standing up at the sky. That's when the ice broke from under him, sending him falling into the dark crevice. Kiryu embedded his sharp claws into the icy walls, fighting to slow his dangerous descent. But his metallic claws were so sharp the icy wall shattered, and it looked like Kiryu would be lost in the abyss. Fire erupted out of its rocket boosters, brightening the underground chasms Kiryu was floating in. But at maximum power, Kiryu ascended back to the surface. His scanners quickly detected Orga's presence in the vicinity, morphing one of his hands into a spinning drill. Kiryu prepared for his rematch. An energy wave slammed into Kiryu's hull, blasting the robot into the ground. But it didn't stop there. The energy wave had so much momentum it sent Kiryu hurtling through the icy terrain, leaving a massive trench in its wake. Orga jumped high into the sky, looking to pounce on Kiryu. Kiryu jumped in time to activate its rocket boosters and collide with the alien midair. Kiryu stabbed Orga in the throat with his electric saber, electrocuting the alien with his other arm. Kiryu buried his drill into Orga's skull and ripped wide open. Orga shrieked in front of Kiryu's face, fogging up his eyes. When the fog was removed, Kiryu took his drill and cut a bloody swath of Orga's upper body, spilling out its organ. Felt like I read that paragraph before. I don't know, it just felt very similar to a previous one.
I could partially see that in a weird way.
Oh well, when the two giants landed, Kiryu pulled back. Orga was on its knees, gasping for its life. Kiryu showed no remorse, no mercy. Its right missile shoulder pack snapped out of its restraints. Orga looked up in time to have Kiryu's missile pack shoved down its throat. Its worried eyes widened in shock. With the click of a button, the missile pack decimated everything above Orga's torso in a blinding flash of light. The burning shockwave slammed at Kiryu, replacing its vision with nothing but static. Randy whistled. That was epic, home dog. The way you took the fight to him reminded me of my Mortal Kombat days. Wow, what a shitty 90s joke I made. I assume you didn't kill the creatures as they attacked us. Modi.
I like that voice.
We established visual. Answer the comment. Orga was gone. I didn't find it tracked. Given the environment, I shouldn't be surprised. There was a loud beeping noise. It was coming from a communications device located in Connie's watch. There was trouble brewing on the surfaces outside. What was that, mate? Onek answered. Orga has been spotted a few kilometers away from here. Connie declared. Kiryu's sensors just picked up his body temperature. What in Sam hell are you talking about? Then you should be up there now. Major Hicks instructed a Connie nodded. Major Hicks ordered a few soldiers to accompany her as she made haste to the surface. While she's saving our sorry asses, I'd like your people to sever your Orga's connections with the UFO once and for all. I don't give a damn if Orga's the one in control or if it's the UFO. Our primary objective is here to divide and conquer. Wait, Hefe! Randy muttered at lightning speed. He was overlooking the film footage from earlier, typing in a series of codes. Randy made a grave discovery. I just noticed something about Asian cutie scuffle, Hefe. According to the time logs on the computer, a fight with Orga's happening at exactly the same time. He clashed with Zilla, you see, Hefe?
Whoa, what?
Hey. I read it the way he talks.
Yeah, no.
What?
Care to share with the rest of the class?
No way. What the heck?
Surprise!
Oh, there's two of them. Felipe said, we're dealing with more than one Orga. Time to run away like all us Frenchies. Nick walked over to Mendel, Craven, and Nigel. That's a lot of fish. The wind was below freezing. It washed over Kiryu's imposing figure, covering its metallic skin in layers of ice. Kiryu's manufacturers, having foreseen a possible event, took extra precautions. An advanced heating system installed in his armor evaporated the ice, but the wind was persistent, and the air was getting colder. Ice quickly returned to fight for dominance. Somewhere in Kiryu's spine, there was a cockpit larger than a motorhome. Akane controlled the robotic Leviathan from within the levers and advanced computers. It hadn't always been this easy. Akane remembered the first time she entered this cockpit. It was an emergency, and she couldn't control the robot from a nearby aircraft like normal. She had to pull and twist levers just to keep Kiryu mobile, hurting her hands and wrists in the process. There was a reason why this method was considered a last resort. It was a necessary risk. One many believed would fail, but it was better than laying your arms down to die. Akane's willpower awakened, something deep inside Kiryu, awakened his own desire to live. Now Akane preferred piloting this way. She'd never tell her spears how Kiryu liked it better this way too. Damn, Kiryu likes it when she gets handsy. Alarms blared in the cockpit. Kiryu detected Orga's biosignature in the vicinity. Up ahead there were two mountains separated by a clearing. Crouched in the clearing was a colossal beast. It took Akane a few seconds to realize it wasn't moving, let alone breathing cautiously. Kiryu moved in closer, his massive feet leaving footprints in the ice and snow. The wind picked up, making it extremely difficult for Kiryu to see him. Kiryu stopped where he last saw Orga. Extended his hand, Kiryu's razor-sharp claws poked into the quiet monster. Orga wasn't moving because it had no life signs. Seeing an opportunity, Kiryu unleashed his oral maser cannon. The electrical energies lanced into Orga's chest, punching a gaping hole through its body. There was no retaliation. Deciding it'd be best to decapitate first and ask questions later, Kiryu's claws separated Orga's head from its neck in a sickening slash. Orga's head exploded in pale dust, which was swept up in the wind. The rest of Orga's body crumbled into sign. There was no life sign. It was as if Orga had never been alive to begin with. That's so strange, whispered Akane. She felt a faint rumble. That was Kiryu's way of warning her something was amiss, and she was going to get to the bottom of it. Pieces of ice fell off the mountain. Kiryu raised his head, searching for the source. At the top of the mountain, it was the silhouette of a demented-looking giant staring down at him. Before Kiryu could react, it vanished. Whatever it was faster than Kiryu in this environment. Could it be Zilla? If so, she better alert Heat immediately and have them call the creature off. She deeply respected the creature. Well, fuck you for all the good he's done. Like Mothra, Gamma, and other champions of Earth, Zilla had proven himself to be one of the mankind's greatest protectors. Yeah, that's a lie. Kiryu stomped around the mountain, locating claw marks on its side. There was a subtle vibration in the ground. In the span of a few seconds, it became more violent. The creature causing it was real close. Kiryu spun around in time to see a huge tail smack against its face. Time passed as slow as with the claws. Kiryu could see the thousands of stars gleaming in the dark sky. Most of the stars burned out when the Earth was young. And somewhere, Akane wondered, there had to be someone like her on the opposite ends of the Earth staring back. If they had a powerful telescope, one calibrated to be thousands of times more efficient than a human one, what would they see? Akane remembered reading about how they wouldn't see people. What they'd be seeing is a window into Earth past. They'd sooner seen a Godzillasaurus than the first man. And if they did see such a magnificent animal, would they try to emulate its power? Would they try to assimilate everything that made it beautiful? Akane and Kiryu returned to the fight. What? Rising out of an imprint made hillside, Kiryu screamed a challenge to its attacker. It roared a challenge back at him. Akane couldn't see it. She knew she was out. It was out there staring at them, waiting for the perfect moment to attack. Sure enough, it lunged at Kiryu from the dark, scratching his armor with its claws. This time, Akane caught a glimpse of its savage appearance. Gray and brownish scales covered its body like soil, covering the dead in cemeteries. It had a long, muscular tail swishing air. Its claws much larger than Orga's flailed loudly. It looked like Orga in so many ways, but sported a frill on its neck. Its snout was larger and jagged spines protruded out of its back. Orga wanted Zilla's genetic strains. Why? It sought the giant reptile and succeeded. After quite enough of Zilla's DNA, it found the other Orga, its injured twin, and assimilated its life force. Orga, the progenitor of all life, was more dangerous than ever. Kiryu's electric sabers burned to life, no doubt about it. Kiryu was fighting for all life on Earth. Suddenly, an electromagnetic wave burned across the frozen tundra. Shutting down Kiryu's systems, the cockpit went dark, trying not to panic. Akane struggled to activate Kiryu's backup power. There's no response. She couldn't even warn Heat of Orga's transformation and his inevitable attack. Pass.
Alright. Nick was lost somewhere in his subconscious. It was like swimming in an ocean without shores, left to drown in madness. Images of his past occasionally popped up. Sometimes they were mental photographs, other times it felt like he was reliving those moments a second time. He remembered meeting Audrey Timmons for the first time. It was outside his dorm. For a few weeks, she had been dating one of Nick's roommates until the young man started spreading unfounded rumors about her. She wanted to hear his side of the story first before passing judgment. Later, she wrote an article about it in their college's newspaper. In the very same article, Audrey denounced the males of their species, comparing them to worms. Nick Tatopoulos saw this as an opportunity to ask her out, since worms fascinated him, and he would very much like to help her understand them better. Nick vowed he'd ask her to marry him if he ever lived through this.
He wanted to give her his worm.
That's the PG version. That's the PG version. He tells people, it's like, yeah, you know, she wrote about worms. I was. Real answer is, you know, she was kind of hot. She was the only girl that. She said yes.
Did George Lucas write this?
Yeah.
Since
the worms were coarse and rough,
and he would very much like to help her understand them better. What the fuck?
The worms were coarse and rough.
Listen. I will say I do like the idea. Pretty sure that Cameron her.
I'm sorry, you cut out.
Yeah, you kind of cut out.
I'm pretty sure he's hinting there about that's Cameron Winter.
That could be, but who knows for sure.
It's like poetry. It rhymes.
Then there was the time Heat was called to investigate Godzilla's whereabouts. They found him a few miles off the coast of the Bikini Atoll. Unfortunately, their presence stirred the atomic god from his slumber. Excuse me. Nick recalled fondly how their lives were saved at the last minute by his surrogate son and friend, Zilla. It was like witnessing a real-life adaptation of Daigoro vs. Goliath tale. David vs. Goliath. Godzilla would have made mincemeat of Heat's protector had Zilla not used his speed and intellect to his advantage. It also helped that Zilla wasn't trying to fight his namesake. On the contrary, Zilla was distracting the king of the monsters so Heat could find safer waters. After they were safe, something incredible happened. Zilla pleaded with Godzilla to spare his human friends and to be on his way. Nick Tatopoulos and his teammates are alive today because of Zilla's ability to make moral decisions. Time and space collapsed. The building blocks of what Nick perceived to be matter shaped one of his biggest regrets. Nick found himself sitting in a chair a few rows back from the front. He was in a college classroom, watching Dr. Blair, then a professor. I wouldn't be wrong. Lecturing his class about mitochondria and how they help feed exilians. Blair approached Nick after class, pleading with him to reconsider his decision. "You're not some schmuck like the rest of these kids," Blair told Nick. "I know your background. You worked hard to get here, unlike that Cameron Winter guy." Oh, hey, look at that.
Hey, I knew I remembered him. I knew it. Okay, I'm gonna the most impactful things that touched me. But please continue.
Alright. So please, I'm begging you, join me on my expedition. Together, we'll make history. Nick sighed. "Professor Blair, you're one of the most brilliant scientists I've ever met. I've learned so much from you. Before you say anything, I do thank you for helping me out with my financial problems and for inspiring me to pursue a career in this field, but my answer is still no." Blair's once beaming face molded in shame. Unable to hide his disappointment, he waved for Nick to leave. Nick anticipated this reaction, thinking it wouldn't faze him. It did. Honoring Blair's request, Nick walked away. The last thing he saw was Blair turning his back on him. In a flash, Nick's memories dissipated, and the young scientist sprung to life. The air was warm, which was strange given the frigid location. Nick squinted to adjust his vision, surprised to see the Millennium UFO hovering above him. It was operational. That explained the unnatural heat in the air. Rising slowly to his feet, Nick heard gunshots rattling from the surface. With no sign of Major Hicks, Philippe, or his Heat teammates, Nick assumed a fight broke out, and they were all forced to retreat without him. Feeling uncomfortable next to an active alien spacecraft, Nick hurried to the surface. But two soldiers were blocking his path, oblivious to his presence. At first, Nick wanted to ask them for help. He instinctively kept himself silent. Something about the way they were waiting didn't feel right. Nick wasn't a superstitious person. He didn't believe something was so wrong because something from beyond was telling him so. There was a rational explanation behind his suspicions. There was no other way out. Did he really need to reach the surface? It sounded like a war zone was going on up there. Maybe that's why he was left behind in the first place. Nick collected his thoughts and sighed. As the leader of Heat, he felt responsible for the well-being of his teammates. Nick made a decision. "Excuse me," Nick said loud enough for the guards to hear. They whirled around in alarm, taking aim at Nick. Nick raised his arms, showing no signs of aggression. They were very wary to drop their weapons. Finally, one of them instructed the other to stand down. "He's not one of them," one of the guards said to the other. "He's the one we're supposed to look after, remember?" Nick walked over to them, rattled by the sounds of gunshots and explosions going off nearby. "You're here to protect me? Under whose authority?" The guards exchanged nervous glances. Something was fishy about all this. Nick stepped out a little bit, catching a quick glimpse of the battle. There were distant figures in the icy backdrop, shooting at them. That's when he saw the bodies in the snow. There were dozens of soldiers lying in puddles of blood. One of them looked very familiar to Nick. Why did it suddenly feel like deja vu? "You're an imposter!" Nick yelled at the guards. Before his very eyes, their hands morphed into huge monstrous claws. Dropping the firearms they didn't need anymore, the imposters grinned menacingly at Nick. Thinking fast, Nick dropped to the ground, picked up one of the guns and squeezed the trigger. He got a few shots off one, killing it. The other was too close, too fast. Nick knew he was done for. A loud gunshot rattled the area. With the hole in its chest, the imposter slumped to the ground. Nick turned to face his savior. With smoke steaming out of the barrel of a rifle, Monique fancied Nick with a smile. "You have really good timing, Monique," Nick praised. "Care explaining to me what the hell is going on here?" Monique motioned for his immediate silence. It didn't take long for Nick to discover why. Several silhouettes were converging on their location. Nick couldn't tell if they were real people or not. Not wanting to find out, Monique convinced Nick to leave and made their escape. Nick was freezing. Of course, he'd been crawling in the ice at a snail's pace for the last half hour. Every fiber of his being wanted to just stand up and shout for help. Ignoring the irony in how his cooler head prevailed, Nick knew he'd attract something the wrong kind of help, even Monique. After waking up, Nick whispered loud enough for Monique to hear. "Those creatures you saved me from mentioned they were guarding me. Why would they do that?" She replied, "It's easier to exploit someone when they trust you." Nick stopped moving.
Oh my god, you're one of them!
Nick stopped moving. As cold winds washed over him, he realized he'd been tricked. There was still a chance for escape. Monique was several yards out in front of him. If he ran now, he might get away. Nick's arms trembled as he tried standing, but his legs were numb. Not giving up, Nick decided to crawl in the direction of whomever the alien imposters were fighting. It could have been Major Hicks leading a resistance. It was a risk, one that might get him killed. It was also a risk he had to take. That's when he heard someone slushing through the snow. Nick looked over his shoulder and saw Monique chasing after him. The ice and snow was the only reason why she didn't have him already. Nick turned to run, but he was quickly thrown into a trench. Nick lifted his face out of the freezing snow, wiped it out of his eyes, and saw Philippe Rocher standing over him. That's when things took a sudden turn for the worse. Nick opened his mouth to say something. Philippe didn't even look at him when he told him to be quiet. Instead, Philippe whipped out a pistol and fired at Monique. Her best hope at evading Philippe's fire wasn't dodging his bullets, but dodging his aim. So she quickly dove into the snow for cover. Philippe raced after her, blasting holes in the snow where she was last seen. "What the hell's going on?" Nick shouted over the gunshots, but Philippe couldn't hear him. There was a brief moment of silence. Philippe inspected the snow much like how an interrogator would look at a convicted felon. He had a sinking suspicion Monique was alive and well. That's when she sprung out of the snow and kicked his legs out from under him, just like earlier. As he fell, Monique was quick to kick the pistol out of his hand. After falling, Philippe jumped to his feet immediately and glared at his former pupil. Both were exceptionally trained killers with many years of experience. Neither was going to let this hostile terrain slow them down anymore. Monique's arm exploded into a flurry of quick jabs. Philippe blocked her hits with great precision and concentration. A glint caught his eye, making it the only warning he had. Monique swiped at his jugular with a knife, but Philippe stopped her. Again she tried and came very close to succeeding. On her third attempt, she grazed his cheek, spilling blood. Drops of black blood dripped off the side of Philippe's face and onto the ice. Nick gasped. Philippe Rocher wasn't human. He had always been an alien in disguise. Nick felt like everything he knew was a lie. Monique braced herself as Philippe, the alien imposter, lunged at her. He blocked her knife thrust, but couldn't stop her from kicking one of his knee joints. Falling onto one leg, Philippe caught Monique's knife and shoved it into her chest. Nick fell to his knees, stunned by what he was seeing. Monique trembled as she clenched and handled the knife. Philippe's imposter backed away with a twisted grin. In her time of dying, Monique thought about pulling it out, but she knew she'd bleed to death if she did. Monique tried standing, but fell down into the ice. With the last ounce of strength she had left, Monique crawled to Nick. Nick reached out to touch his friend. Monique's eyes rolled back as she breathed her last.
Yes.
She dropped into his arms, as cold and lifeless as the frozen land around him. If it's any consolation, whispered the alien posing as Philippe, she died a warrior's death. Nick glared into his inhuman eyes. If looks could kill, Nick's would have burned him to a cinder. The alien was not terribly worried about Nick. It knew he wasn't a threat. Gently, Nick laid Monique down in the snow.
Hey, don't underestimate Matthew Broderick. He has two or more kills under his belt.
All right, and he can help ruin a franchise.
Gently, Nick laid Monique down in the snow and stood up to confront her killer. Even his bravado couldn't mask the fear that made him tremble. Tell the truth, Nick demanded. How long have you been Philippe Rocher? Was his life just one big act like our friendship? Everything is an act, the alien sneered. Nick felt something warm trickle off his hands. He couldn't bring himself to look at Monique's blood or her corpse. Clenching his fist and gritting his teeth, Nick made his last stand. He knew he had little chance against Philippe, let alone his alien clone, but he died trying. The alien took a step closer. Nick closed his eyes, shaking uncontrollably. That's when a loud bang rattled his ears. A hole in the size of a dime appeared on the alien Philippe's forehead. Seconds passed before the alien fell, its dark blood washing over the ice. Nick, shocked by what happened, watched the Philippe alien transform into its true demented form. Seconds later, the deceased Monique twisted and bubbled into a Maglan shape. She was never the real Monique. Perched on an icy cliff miles away, Monique Dupre looked out of the scope of her sniper rifle. Even from this distance, she could see Nick trying to make sense of all this insanity. Philippe Rocher walked up from behind with a smirk on his face. You took pleasure in taking that last shot, he observed. Monique smiled. What can I say? That wasn't the first time he stabbed me in the heart. I had to get back at him somehow.
Boo!
Yeah.
Man, that was epic cringe.
Although it would seem their disguises are so good, they didn't know they were allies.
You know, I think aliens are kind of dumb.
This whole fic is dumb.
Well, true.
Agents Rocher Dupre, Major Hicks barked from below. Take a squad down there and rescue Nick. Do it before I finish this sentence. He just finished it. Monique and Philippe obeyed his command. Within seconds, Monique had the sniper rifle disassembled and locked away in a combat bag. Philippe approached a group of soldiers, briefing them on their assignments. They were all ready to roll out in less than a minute. Elsie and Craven were trying to formulate the next plan with Major Hicks. That's when Nigel's alarm systems blared. Uh-oh, that couldn't mean anything good, Elsie said. Warning, giant life form approaching our position, the robot shrieked. A shadow blotted over the sunlight. They all looked up to see Orga's claws swiping down. Monique flipped over the ledge, landing next to her teammates. Where she had been standing seconds before was now a crevice. Elsie looked up at Orga, amazed by his physical changes. He's evolved, she gasped. Orga has acquired Zilla's best attributes. We're in so much trouble. Fate agreed.
Wait. Zilla has good attributes?
Hey, don't you mock Zilla Jr.
Zilla sucks. So does his stupid, ugly son.
You take that back. You take that back.
To the Kaiju fandom. They're the equivalent to AIDS.
AIDS! Anyway. A few miles away, Kiryu's glinting shape marched out of the frozen mountains. He wasn't interested in resuming his fight with Orga. The Mechagodzilla of the new millennium had its weapons targeting the humans. Over the radio, Major Hicks barked orders at Kiryu's pilot, Akane Yashiro, ordering her to stop. Kiryu's cold silence was more ominous than the static that responded back. Monique felt a tug on her arm. It was Philippe. We need a plan now, he whispered. A shadow fell over them. Didn't I just read that? Oh well. The Millennium UFO hovered above the humans, emitting a humming sound. Light materialized in the core of its energy cannon. Monique carefully analyzed her enemies and her chances of survival. Orga, Kiryu, the Millennium UFO. 3 powerful entities bent on exterminating them. Maybe with the combination of perfect timing and luck she could evade one. But hell would freeze over before long before she could overcome all 3. Miracles like that don't exist. Not in this world. It's going to exist in this world. Averting her eyes, Monique saw Nick's distant figure standing alone. Unbeknownst to him, the alien army, still posing as the United States infantry, closed in on him. Even if he tried escaping, where'd he go? We could really use a miracle right about now, gasped Brandy, confirming Monique's worst suspicions. Nick wasn't sure if he had been driven crazy yet. He was so numb the cold no longer bothered him, but every time he took a step forward, he'd fall into one knee and fight like hell to stand right back up. Of course, Nick didn't know why he was moving. It would seem his cerebellum, the part of his brain responsible for movements, didn't get the memo. There was nowhere safe to go. Orga, Kiryu, and the Millennium UFO were seconds away from atomizing the mountain his friends were on. Were they really friends, or were they aliens in disguise? Nick didn't know. "Why do you persist, Nick?" asked a voice from his past. It took all of Nick's strength to face his former friend and mentor, Dr. Blair. He was no illusion. Dr. Blair was really standing there in the snow, favoring Nick with a demented look of fulfillment. Nick lost the strength to stand, but right before resigning himself to an icy tomb, Dr. Blair caught him. Nick trembled when Blair's cold, pale fingers caressed his forehead. "It's because you are a survivor, Nick," Dr. Blair said, answering his own question. "You always have been, and now, thanks to us, you are eternal. Whatever happens to the body you inhabit, your code, your magnificent mind, will live on forever in our collective consciousness." What are you talking about?" a feeble Nick whispered. "Oh, my boy," Dr. Blair laughed, embracing Nick like a father would to his son. "You haven't fully awoken yet. You're letting those human memories shackle you. I can relate. But they're nothing more than windows to a previous life." Nick closed his eyes, wanting to die. "You're not real." Dr. Blair's hand morphed into a gray-skinned claw. Microscopic receptors on his fingertips fed him Nick's genetic information. Blair's face, once beaming with pride, twisted into a look of hatred and contempt. "And you think you are?" Dr. Blair hissed. "We were exploring the cosmos long before your little planet stitched itself together. You couldn't even imagine what we know, where we've been. While your pitiful race is too busy squabbling over the most primitive of desires, we not only harnessed life, we guided it. Would you like to know how you fell from grace?" Nick couldn't move. All he could do was watch helplessly as Blair's pale face turned to shades of gray. 50 shades of gray. Needle-like teeth protruded out from his bleeding...
Hey, 50 Shades of Grey shot.
Hey! Needle-like teeth protruded out of his bleeding gums. Nick stared in stunned silence as Blair uttered a sickling gurgle. Finally, Nick answered, "Go to hell." Which was a response to just go on. "Long ago, one of our first prototype cruisers found this planet," Blair revealed, ignoring Nick. "But they crashed. With their bodies compromised, they seeded the environment with their essence, giving life to life. Billions of years later, another one of our cruisers homed in on signal. It lost control, and like the crew before it, it crashed. Your scientists know this cruiser as the Millennium UFO. However, unlike the first cruiser, this one chose hibernation over New Genesis. When it resurfaced, it found an entire world full of life." Suddenly, Blair's facial features changed. Nick heard the bones under Blair's skin snap and twist, the blood in his bulging veins boiling. How long did it take for Nick to realize he was no longer looking at the creature posing as Dr. Blair, but the creature posing as himself? It was like back when he was peering into the sea, staring into his watery reflection. That felt like a lifetime ago, and thanks for pointing that one out. "So you see, Nick's alien doppelganger said, "we're family, and we've come now to collect what is rightfully ours." Nick heard the sound of footsteps crunching in the snow. The silhouettes of many soldiers, all aliens in disguise, were creeping up on them. Nick felt a fire rise from within. He didn't know why or how this was possible. Maybe it was adrenaline, but he had no energy left to summon. It didn't matter anymore because even he had no strength to stand. He wasn't going to let these alien bastards walk over him without a fight. "We're not yours," Nick said in defiance. "Even if what you say is true, we will not go down without a fight." Nick glared into his eyes of his alien clone. It glared back, looking like it might just peel the skin from his face to prove its point. There was a sudden vibration in the ground. At first it was subtle, but soon it matured into a full-blown earthquake. The cause didn't remain a mystery for long. A gigantic tail burst out of underground, tossing chunks of ice and snow up into the air, before smashing the alien army into oblivion. Rows of spikes broke the splintered surface, rising on the back of one of Earth's greatest champions, Zilla. The giant reptile bellowed a mighty roar, challenging the alien threat. His feral eyes looked down at Nick and his alien clone. Grunting, Zilla tilted his head in confusion. He knew this was unusual. Zilla didn't have two fathers. They're not gay. What a wonderful specimen you are, said the alien Nick. I've always been fond of them, the mutations. I'm well acquainted with this one's genetics. It's a sea of untapped potential. Nick, he said, facing his human counterpart, you should be ashamed of yourself, for you're letting this animal's usefulness go to waste. And also because we couldn't assimilate Godzilla's DNA.
You've been a horrible father to this young reptile. You haven't taken him on walks. It's just...
Nick bent down, sniffing the alien posing as his adopted father. Nick had never seen himself look so confident. Zilla didn't seem to realize he was in the presence of an extraterrestrial. Zilla, Nick moaned. Don't trust him. Nick's alien clone laughed. So you don't even trust yourself. That's right, Nick. I'm you. Down to the last cell. I'm you. And so much more. As far as this reptile's concerned, I'm his father. But I won't just be his father. No, I'll be his mentor. I'll transform him into a god. Zilla. Zilla watched the two Nicks squabble. The reptile wasn't completely ignorant of their words. Human language was initially difficult for him to comprehend, but now he knew enough to understand and obey. Zilla stared at his two fathers, knowing something was awry. Past a gray shot. Whew.
So that's your endgame, huh? Nick said to his alien counterpart. You want to become a god? Even with your power and knowledge, you're perfect like the rest of us. Yes, we're imperfect, replied the alien. Had we been like you from the start, our imperfections would have been sentenced to us an early extinction. But we're more than that, than what you are. We've evolved and will continue to evolve, with or without your consent. Nick took a deep breath. Pushing off the ice, Nick stood up. Every fiber of his being wanted to give up. He wanted to lie down and stay down, but he also wanted to save the world. With burning determination and clenched fists, Nick glared at his alien clone and did not blink. No, your evolution ends now.
Wait, he didn't blink. He's an exilian.
Oh shit, oh fuck.
Damn.
Zilla roared, recognizing which one of them was his real father. To the surprise of Nick's alien clone, the giant reptile picked the alien up by his two fingers and dangled him in front of his massive jaws. Nick looked up, smiling. His alien clone was screaming for his life. Zilla passed judgment before he could plead his case. Zilla flicked the alien, hurtling his mangled remains into Orga's direction. Nick shielded his eyes, knowing what was coming next. Atomic light encircled Zilla's spikes, heralding his thermonuclear breath. Emerald flames vaporized the clone of Nyctopolys and burned into Orga's backside. Orga's screeching pain attracted Kiryu and the Millennium UFO's attention. Zilla sprinted across the ice, pouncing on the wounded Orga while simultaneously knocking Kiryu down with his tail. It all happened lightning fast. That's my boy, Nick whispered. The Millennium UFO descended, firing its energy cannon into Zilla's chest. Zilla went flying into the hangar where the UFO had been kept. Shaking crumbled ice off his scaly face, Zilla braced himself for the UFO's second strike. Its energy cannon enveloped the giant reptile, casting a bright light throughout the land. When the UFO powered its energy weapon down, all that remained was a sizzling impact crater. As it hovered closer, its sensors realized it was more than just a crater. It was a hole. Zilla burst out from under the UFO, blasting a burning hole through its undercarriage. The UFO left a trail of burning smoke before crashing into the hillside, dying into a great explosion. Orga blindsided Zilla by tackling him into the ground. There, he gripped Zilla's chest open with his serrated claws. Fighting the pain, Zilla answered by giving Orga a mouthful of thermonuclear fire. Disorientated, Orga stumbled away. Zilla moved to take advantage of Orga's condition until Kiryu's wrist lasers seared into his flesh. Snorting flames out of his nostrils, Zilla's eyes glowed as his spikes powered up. Before he could blast Kiryu, Zilla was forced to face Orga as the alien fired a thermonuclear blast of its own. Zilla's jaws parted, scorching the frigid winds with his fire. The two thermonuclear blasts burned into one another. With neither giving ground, the flames exploded in all directions, melting the ice while evaporating the snow. The torrent of atomic fire burning out of Zilla's mouth faded. Zilla looked away and shielded himself, expecting worse atomic fire to envelop him. When that didn't happen, Zilla stared into the maelstrom of fire burning in the heart of Antarctica. Zilla was cautious of his surroundings, but he couldn't help it. The fire was beautiful. When did life become so enthralled by fire? Fire was both beautiful and deadly. Whenever a forest fire raged, all forms of life would make themselves scarce. But every once in a while, a soul would become so captivated by its light and warmth it'd do nothing but watch it. On some level, life felt a kindred spirit in fire. So too did Zilla. Atomic fire burned in his heart. It's what gave him life, and that would give the strength to end Orga's. Suddenly, Orga's claw shot out of the fire, grabbing Zilla by the snout. With tremendous strength, it pulled Zilla into the inferno. Monique and her Heat teammates watched the battle unfold. They've seen their fair share of monster battles, but this one was different. Their stakes were higher. If Zilla perished, all life would follow him into oblivion. What about Godzilla? What about Kiryu?
What about Kiryu? What about Godzilla?
Yeah.
What about Shrek?
Guys, there's plenty of other monsters that can do this. Don't you worry. Subduing her personal doubts, Monique moved into action. She walked over the edge where Kiryu towered above them. It had its weapons drawn on Zilla, ready to fire. "Akane!" Monique shouted while waving her arms. "Akane, if you can hear me, you must take back control." "That's your plan," Philip said with the look of defeat in his hardened face. "There's a chance she's still alive and she can hear me," Monique responded. "I'm going to do everything I can to help." Randy, Craven, and Elsie joined them. "We can help," Elsie said. "Although I've never seen our dear French operative show so much emotion, it must be Christmas." "Randy and I can get Nigel to hack Kiryu's network." Craven bragged before looking nervous. "Maybe we can free it of Orga's control." Akane opened her eyes to familiar surroundings. A network of machines and blinking lights greeted her beaten and bruised complexion. The last thing she remembered before losing consciousness was Kiryu malfunction and Orga's ambush. Somehow the alien hacked into Kiryu's systems. When she looked to see what was happening outside, she saw only static. "Kiryu," Akane whispered. "We've been compromised. I know you can hear me. You must help us." A perpetual silence filled the room. It was unusual, given how all the machines and hydraulics were humming a few seconds earlier. Was she too late? Had the alien presence erased Kiryu's spirit? As Akane's moved to find another way to regain control, she heard a distant rumble. It was coming from within her Mechagodzilla. Craven touched a control rod, motioning for Nigel to move into the position. When Nigel didn't move, Craven's confidence plummeted. He reached to restart Nigel's mainframe, but the robot batted his arm away. It tilted its head, staring at Craven with its glowing green eyes. In a flash, Nigel's green eyes turned red. "Randy, please tell me you're doing this." "Randy, please tell me this is your doing," Elsie whispered, which would be really bad timing, by the way. No," Randy admitted, with apprehension in his voice. "My work is far more original than this." And Nigel raised his arms in a threatening gesture. In an instant, the robot released a disturbing sonic scream. It charged at the humans, waving its sharp arms around as if they were knives. Monique and Philip jumped in front of the members of Heat, pistols raised. They emptied their bullets into the wild robot, punching holes through the golden exterior. Nigel didn't slow down. Elsie screamed for Major Hicks and his men to help them. "I refuse to be killed by Nigel of all," he shouted. Craven looked offended. That UFO must have hacked into... sorry, guys. That UFO must have hacked into it when Nigel connected with it earlier, Randy theorized. The Doc's little toy has one big ticking time bomb this whole time. Nigel was seconds away from tearing into its creators before Kiryu hands scooped him up, crushing it into thousands of pieces. Randy laughed after hearing Nigel scream, much to Craven's dismay. Kiryu looked down at the humans, his eyes glowing red. Philip was distrustful, believing the red eyes represented Kiryu's descent into madness. But Monique knew better. She waved at the robotic behemoth, nodding her head in approval. So this is what Kiryu looks like when he goes berserk, when he quipped. Philip felt nervous again. Berserk? How would Kiryu going berserk help them? Akane voiced, hey guys, my voice is going a little soft again. It's still a little, I'm gonna switch this out.
Yeah.
Pass.
Nagoda, you're up.
Okay. Akane's voice entered through a hidden speaker. Kiryu was in... Hold up. Kiryu was in control, but he's agreed to help us. He knows what's at stake. But before we intervene, we need to go help. Kiryu's rocket boosters burned to life. In a great burst of energy, Kiryu jumped thousands of feet into the air and landed in a controlled descent not far from Nick Totopoulos. Kiryu lowered his hand, waiting for Nick to step into the center of his palm. Get in, Akane's digitized. Nick moved as fast as his tired body could. Kiryu picked him up slowly, motioning for him to enter through a door at the base of his neck. Nick did exactly that. Cool, was all Nick could say to himself. He was about to enter the cockpit of the new Mechagodzilla, Kiryu. When Nick entered, a wall of warm air greeted him. It was one of the greatest feelings he had ever felt. It reminded him of being in his arms of his girlfriend, Audrey Timmons. Akane rushed over to help him. She checked his vitals, making sure he wasn't about to die on her. You'll live, Dr. Totopoulos, she said. But we need to get you medical attention as soon as possible. No, Nick responded. What we need to do is to give Zilla our help as soon as possible. Akane nodded. Orga slammed Zilla repeatedly into the ice. Zilla gasped for air, but he couldn't breathe. Orga's blows must have punctured one of his lungs. It'd take a few moments for Zilla's regeneration to heal the damage. Orga choked him with one claw and showed him the other. It was Orga's way of saying Zilla didn't have moments. Orga raised the claw, looking to decapitate the giant reptile that troubled him so. Kiryu's oral laser cannon and laser blast zapped into Orga's elbow joint, blasting it off with its destructive power. Orga screamed like the wounded animal it was. Not even Orga could regenerate a lost limb. Kiryu's rockets burned at maximum power, propelling the metal dragon in the direction of its alien adversary. Kiryu's metallic skin pulsated with light, charging up enormous amounts of kinetic energy. When Kiryu rammed into Orga, it directed all that energy into the alien. The end result was anything but pleasant for Orga. As Orga was sent flying into a mountain, Kiryu inspected the condition of his comrade, Zilla. Zilla stared at the steel giant, unsure of his motives. When Nick's voice spoke through Kiryu's speakers, confirming him as friendly, Zilla accepted Mechagodzilla as his ally. When Orga awoke, it found itself in the heart of a ravaged mountain. Slowly, Orga rose to its full height. It was hard to imagine something was powerful enough to deliver such a blow, such a mighty blow. It was even harder to imagine something being strong enough to survive such a catastrophe. Orga felt its bones snap back into place. His body could heal the damage, but not the pain. Grumbling, Orga continued its stride. Kiryu rapidly descended from the sky, locking Orga's path. Orga roared at the robot, ready for a rebound. Orga's shriek was drowned out by an even louder roar. Zilla stood behind the alien monstrosity, swinging his tail back and forth like a tiger ready to pounce. Orga was surrounded and outnumbered. Not that it mattered. Orga leapt at Kiryu, claws outstretched. Kiryu's wrist-mounted lasers fired, belting off its gray-greenish hide. Orga's assimilation of Zilla's DNA enhanced its resistance to harm. Kiryu would have to go with a different strategy. Kiryu jumped back, using his rocket boosters to create an even larger gap between him and Orga. Swirls of air sucked into the divot on powerful. It caught Kiryu by surprise, drilling it into pushing the robot back for miles. As what happens in the KWC. Inside Kiryu's cockpit, Nick didn't know where he His entire world had just been shaken. Akane was holding on to a left. Blood dripped out a newly made cut on her forehead. Nick cleared his throat to speak, only to swallow the taste of his own blood. Orga approaching. Behind the hulking abomination, Zilla tore in. Zilla's teeth and claws couldn't pierce Orga's thick. Orga's claws, however, would have no trouble. Zilla's agility eviscerated. He still wasn't fast enough to evade Orga's thermonuclear fire. Zilla's heat eat away at his. Now he knew what it felt like to taste his. So many have been slain by his atomic fire. He wouldn't be one of them. Zilla clawed at the ground, disappearing beneath its white. Hundreds of feet beneath the ice, Zilla tunneled. He clawed through a patch of ice before coming face to face with Orga. Orga had burrowed down to meet him in his own element. Kiryu surveyed the desolate landscape. There were no signs of Orga or then land, splitting the icy earth asunder. Orga jumped out in a hail of ice, with Zilla trapped in his clutches. Orga slammed Zilla down, creating a gigantic crater. Kiryu's optic sensors couldn't see through the haze caused by the impact. When it cleared, Orga stood over Zilla. His jaw snapped open. Orga's mouth was now several times wider. It wanted to swallow Zilla. Oh. Kiryu burned up. Then he shut them off, allowing his body to fall right on Orga's back. Orga tried shaking Kiryu off. Zilla recovered fast enough to fire his thermonuclear blast into the back of or burning the alien's insides. Orga didn't squirm or cry. All it did was focus its livid, demented eyes on the radioactive iguana. There was a spark in the back of Orga's throat. Zilla and Kiryu knew what was coming next. As Orga prepared to fire his thermonuclear breath, Kiryu wrapped his arms around the alien's throat and squeezed as hard as he could. Orga panicked, knowing he couldn't stop the irradiated energy from building up. The first sign that his energy was overloading happened when the spikes on his back blew up into thousands of glowing shards. Orga's eyes melted in their sockets, erased by the green flames running from within. Orga's skin bubbled and popped. Before long, Orga's body increased in size, becoming several times larger than Kiryu and Zilla. At the right time, Kiryu released his grip and jumped off as Orga disappeared in a fiery blast. You want me to pass or you want me to keep reading?
That's up to you.
I'll read 3 more and then I'll pass. What remained of Orga writhed in the ocean of smoldering flesh and screaming head. Everything Orga's alien race had assimilated, every single-celled being it had ever taken into itself, screamed for a more merciful. It was the most gruesome, sickening thing anyone had ever seen. There were so many of them. Somewhere in the center of all this madness, Orga's mangled head gasped for air. This reminds me of the scene from the book was it a manga or was it a novel they made for it?
Oh yeah,
Godzilla
the manga
2000.
adaptation. Yeah, I could see that.
Yeah. Kiryu and Zilla watched Orga suffer. It was inhumane to leave him like this. Kiryu, Akane said, finish him. Pass.
Kiryu's chest opened, revealing the absolute zero cannon. Particles of light encircled the mouth of the cannon, fusing together into a glowing sphere. Kiryu would be ready to fire its most powerful weapon in under a minute. Nick closed his eyes and thought about what Dr. Blair said earlier. He told Nick not to trust anyone. That advice turned out to be true. He couldn't even trust himself. Today, Nick caught a glimpse of what he'd be like if he had the knowledge of a demigod. He'd be as cold and merciless as the Antarctic. But he also knew that these forerunners of life lacked humanity and humility. Somewhere in the distant past, these beings exchanged honor of power. Admittedly, Nick felt tiny in comparison, but that was to be expected. If there's anything he could gain from all this, it's pride. Despite all their power and knowledge, the millennial race want what mankind has. Someday, perhaps centuries from now, mankind will ascend beyond the stars and achieve greatness without forsaking its soul.
I doubt it.
World War III, whoa! Anyway.
Yeah, complete the trilogy!
Secretly, the Earth is Valve in disguise. We can't.
Kiryu fired. Orga's writhing, multi-limbed form transformed into a frozen statue. Wait, it actually hit?
Holy crap, it actually hit.
Whoa. Wogue. Zilla walked over and stomped on Orga's frozen head, causing a massive ripple, shattering Orga's body into millions of pieces. Zilla's spine flashed as he unleashed his thermonuclear fire on Orga's shattered remains. Green flames engulfed Orga, leaving no trace of the alien. It was a good day to be an Earthling. Colors of blue painted the skies. The weather was nice, no howling winds or snowstorms. Antarctica looked stunning as the sunlight sparkled off its white skin. The scenery was so relaxed, so peaceful. Nick couldn't even hear the helicopters whirling behind him. Elsie walked up, comforting him with a touch on his shoulder. We need to get you back on the boats or you're going to die of hypothermia. What if I'm already dead? Nick coughed. We can't be that lucky. Elsie couldn't tell if he was kidding or not. Randy walked up, patting Nick on the back. Craven joined them, still depressed over the loss of Nigel. Chill, Doc, Randy said, reading Craven like a book. We can rebuild him. We have the technology.
Fuck. Oh wait, guys, no. Let's ask that Nano Mecha Godzilla. I'm sure he won't kill us.
Yeah.
Monique and Akane joined them. Elsie looked for Philip, but he was nowhere to be found. Monique nodded slightly, her way of saying she was fine. Akane walked over to shake Nick's hand, trembled as he shook hers. Thank you, Nick said. Thank you for saving my life. Thank you for showing us why human life is worth living.
I didn't do it for you.
Akane replied, meaning every word. So... Randy chipped in, putting his arms around Monique and Akane. How do you sexy ladies know each other?
Oh my god, settle down, Weinstein. This is not progressive, and that pisses me off.
Hold on a second.
He had the biggest grin on his face. Akane smiled, signaling Monique to answer for her. Monique escaped Randy's touch and stepped close, nearly touching his face with her own. She now had Randy's full, undivided attention. We were once, how would you say, intimate? She whispered into his ear. Randy was speechless. At a helicopter, Major Dix was
that could
talking...
be progressive.
Could be. No, it's passive progressive.
At a helicopter, Major Dix was talking on a secured line. Yes, sir, he said, his voice low. I'm afraid our worst fears have been confirmed. Our government has been compromised. We now know who's responsible. They sent us here to suffer a fate worse than death. So let's take him out now while we still have the element of surprise.
D.W. Griffith.
Take blood.
Hanging up, Major Hicks called for Akane and the members of Heat to board the helicopters. It was time to go. Akane and the other members of Heat walked away, tugging Randy with them. Nick and Monique stayed behind, not ready to leave yet. Just leave Randy there. Monique looked up, marveling at Zilla. He'd been standing there this whole time, making sure Nick was safe. She can only imagine how uncomfortable the giant reptile felt this far south. Then again, Zilla was a radioactive mutant, and didn't seem to be fazed by the cold. Like them, he might have found it relaxing. Nick spoke quietly. You asked me earlier if I think we should know everything. Okay? Said Monique. My answer is still the same, Nick confessed. I don't know, but I'm not going to stop trying. As long as we keep asking questions and keep seeking answers, we'll find greater meanings in life. Monique nodded, admiring him for his sincerity and enthusiasm. Despite his renewed interest in science, Nick looked like something was troubling him. I know when you and Dr. Blair last saw each other, you left on bad terms, Monique said. But do you remember his last words? He referred to you as both a colleague and a friend. Nick thought about what that meant. A light wind blew over him, encouraging him to move forward. Thanks, Monique. Together, Nick and Monique trotted off towards the helicopters. Zilla watched them leave, their words echoing in his mind. Little by little, he was learning human tongue, and what it meant to be one of them. Maybe if he lived long enough, Zilla might someday teach them something new, something they never would have imagined on their own. The helicopters lifted off, departing for the shoreline. Zilla and Kiryu exchanged their goodbyes before leaving through different methods. Zilla burrowed underground into a hidden sea. Kiryu flew into the sky to follow the helicopters. Orga's grave festered. It would be quarantined and sealed off for decades. The events of today would be shared only by a select few. Those who survived the close encounter would be briefed and given whatever they desired in exchange for mutual silence. While the scientific community would have had a field day with all these new findings, it was generally understood why the public wasn't ready to learn the truth. If word got out that all life on Earth originated from the millennial race, Orga's ancestors, there'd be chaos. It's human nature to fear what they don't understand. However, humans have the capacity to believe and disbelieve whatever they want, even if it's the truth they're choosing to ignore in favor of an ignorant state of bliss. Somewhere in the ice, an alien squirmed. It looked like a bipedal squid, one with human-like arms and testicles. Since it was not of this world, it would soon die because oxygen was poisoned to its lungs.
It was Squidward on a chair.
Take blood. That's a throwback.
Before crossing the threshold of life and death, it uttered a silent warning. The void was coming. In the darkest depths of space, it remembered how its assimilator, Orga, was fleeing for its life. It remembered how the millennial race was on the verge of extinction because of this looming threat. They had returned to Earth, to their progeny, to start over. A cosmic horror from beyond was coming. It was worse than King Ghidorah, worse than Space Godzilla. Upon its arrival, it would poison the Earth and eradicate all life. Pass.
With its last breath, the alien wished the Earthlings good luck and hoped they would soon break the shackles of their self-imposed exile. If they united amongst themselves, perhaps they'd find a way to cure the void. that was there all along. The greatest threat to life wasn't some monstrosity entity or an alien armada or a cataclysmic event. The greatest threat to life was losing the will to live. And that being, that was the threat to us all, was known as Roland Emmerich, winner.
Damn.
Just Kiryu.
While also Zilla flew up in the sky and said, "My ass has spikes in them!"
Alex, they're not.
Yeah, cut that out, cut that out.
Okay. All right.
I thought
okay.
third
I have
was
some
in
questions and
Go
comments.
right on ahead. You're allowed to go
Joe.
first.
Okay, so first off, so we know this match took a very sharp turn, considering the fact that the sequel to this was not, that the sequel to this did not include in any way, shape, or form a cosmic horror coming down from the space.
Right.
Damn.
Well, it's the sequel.
I think he's referring to like 133 or 150 or something.
Fuck.
No, yeah, the 150 was the sequel to this, and it did not include it.
Well, I think the whole idea was not like the idea was that the will to live is like I think it might be inferring death. Like this whole theme going on with life and death, and I think that's what it was referring to. It was like the inevitable end of everything, and losing the will to live is the worst thing. I think that's what it was referring to, not an actual alien armada.
I hope my
So
death
this-
makes more sense than my life.
Big bastard.
So this was written by George Lucas.
So no, the ending isn't meant to be literal, it's meant to be metaphorical of the end of all things. A la, like, the heat death of the universe, basically.
Noted. Well, upon the other thing, here, I'll wait for my turn. Andrew, you give your
All
thoughts.
right, okay.
Go first.
So normally, like I said, I will say this. The fighting was pretty strong. I did like the fighting components to this match. I like the way things sort of unraveled. It's like, okay, you got Orga, you got Zilla fighting Orga, and then it's like you got Kiryu fighting Orga, and then Kiryu kills Orga, and it's like, wait, what? And I was like, oh, there's a second Orga that kind of helps continue the story along, and I like the way the fights unraveled. Those were really nice, and I do enjoy the ending with Orga being burned to death, and it's like all the creatures that had assimilated were all crying out to end it all, and it was like, okay, that's great, love that stuff. The human element is sadly the thing I think that hampers this story. The conspiracy isn't particularly well developed or even that interesting to me. It's just, oh, that's the direction you're gonna kind of go with it. Also, the Millennials are idiots, I guess. Mm-hmm. I get it was meant to be oh yeah,
where they can't even tell each other apart.
Right. That was stupid. That was friggin' stupid. Couldn't you have had the balls to do it, or could you have played it in a little more? Okay, if it was meant to be two aliens were because like I said, I figured Orga could kill himself to gain his trust. I'm gonna send a clone to sit.
Listen, guys, don't underestimate his ability to kill him.
Right, exactly. I mean, there could have been a smart way to implement that. It just wasn't done here. Killing an expendable clone. Yeah, you could do a lot with that to screw somebody over mentally. You really could. But this match does not do that because it was not smart enough to implement that kind of technique. But
no, it was too busy trying to copy the Thing.
Yeah.
It was imitating the Thing, which is an imitation of everything.
Yeah, exactly. I do like the fact that this does I wouldn't want to say follows up, but you could imagine it as a loose continuation of the whole origins of life thing from 108. How Dagora was just the separate thing from all life on Earth, and here we discover that the progenitor here is basically Orga. So it's all right. So, but no, yeah, I some of the characters and some of the humors were pretty on point. Other points were just ugh. The part where
There's a lot of exposition.
Oh yeah, there's a bunch of exposition in this. My gosh, the exposition could not calm down to save its life. Golly.
Damn.
I'm very mixed on this one. This is one with a fresh set of eyes. Look at this match over years later. It's like, ugh. Yeah, this does not particularly ring well, and I could even see myself back then not really, liking the kaiju component to this one, but not liking the human element. The human element to this one feels pretty weak. And then it gets all hammy and, the meaning of life is, and it's like, whatever. So.
Okay, so there are 3 things I like about this. A number of things. Monique getting the upper hand on Philip. The things I like most about this: Monique going to stab Philip in the crotch. The sequence where Nick looks back on his past, and the whole double Orga thing. I forgot how good the fights are. The fights were better than I remembered.
But the story, the rather poorly structured story, kind of took me out of the fight. So it was kind of a bummer because the fight itself is good. It's just, the main story kind of takes you out of it, which is a bummer because the main story should be there to enhance that final battle, not take away. To me, at least.
Yeah. It's honestly just because there's. Someone else go. Sorry, I'm getting a call.
Damn.
Okay. Hopefully he stops calling me. Okay, but regardless, no. So, my big thing for this match is the fights were good. Sorry, where was I again? I got distracted.
You were talking about crap. Let's see. You had mentioned let's see. I had made mention of how I was taken out of the fight or taken out of the fights because of the story and its lack of construction or not being engaging. I think you were going.
Oh yeah. Correct. Right. So I would agree with that because there's so much exposition here that it's kind of like a slog to get to the highlights.
Mm-hmm.
It's not there's so much explanation in depth of Nick's background. So much detail, so much used, so much said that it's just enough. We don't need any more of the great theories of life and such things. I almost kind of got annoyed at the match. Stop preaching.
Yeah.
Stop it.
Agreed. And I was
there are good moments between the characters, and there are some good moments with there are great moments with the monsters.
Yes.
But it's just very preachy, and the conspiracy just doesn't go anywhere because you're not really there's no I don't know. There's nothing that really convinces you any of this is weird or different or you know what I mean? It's just feels
it doesn't take full advantage of its concept.
It feels like it's underutilized. Yeah, it's undervalued. So the concepts feel a little bit lacking, and it's for the most part, it just feels like it had a lot of great ideas, but in the execution was very wonky.
Yes, I agree. I have to wholly agree on that.
Plot holes the Monique and Philip alien clones fighting each other. Why would they do that? You'd think they would if these aliens are smart enough to figure out a way to talk to each other if they're in disguise. Little stuff like that once you get that was a very cool moment. When I first read it, I remember reading, wow, that was an awesome twist.
As much as I'm
looking back,
not a fan of this match, I think what Tom was trying to do is trying to make it seem like Nick can't trust anyone, and trying to put on an act for Nick, trying to deceive him. I think the Orga aliens or whatever you want to call them were still on the same side. They were just doing it as a ploy.
Right. And like I said, that idea in of itself would be smart. It's okay, I'm going to have, like I said, if they're dispensable clones, then yeah, I think that plan would make sense. It's okay, I'm going to kill, you, so that way he could trust me, even though we're both on the same side. You know, it's basically you're expendable, I'm expendable, so it doesn't matter which one of us goes, just so long as we get his trust. That would have been a smart way to do it, but I don't think this match did that. I'm pretty sure it said something like, you know, oh, not even they recognized each other or something. I was like, ah.
But also, why are they trying to get his trust? What's the end game?
Right. That's kind of comes with the issue of the lack of development. We don't really get a whole lot. Like, what's the point of keeping him alive? Like, why couldn't this been through the perspective of an alien Nick? Wouldn't that have been a twist? You know.
Yeah, there's just a lot of like little stuff that you're just questioning, like, why is this going on? Why
did Orga want Nick's fish meat?
Right, exactly.
It's just like, why were they focused on Nick? Why were, like, there's no explanation or reasoning behind it
outside of getting a
because
plot.
he's the main character.
I mean, this would have been gross, but what if Orga was sexually attracted to Nick? It would have been gross, but it would have made me interested.
Yeah, I think that would.
To wondering what the hell is going on.
It may sound like nasty and weird, but at least it would be a purpose rather than leaving it vague.
Yeah, at least it would be something.
Or like they needed Nick to get off Antarctica. Like they just need one of them to get off.
Yeah.
Like it's like if there was like build up, like if one of them gets off, then the whole world can get infected.
Wait. Well, why would they need Nick to get off the island? Couldn't they
like
just
security code, like someone to help them get off? Because they don't.
Well, they wouldn't need that. They could just kill everyone else, grab their security codes. Hell, they even captured Kiryu for a little bit.
Yeah. Again.
Yeah. So I'm pretty sure they could. They don't need anyone if they wanted to get off Antarctica. Right. They could have just killed everyone, grabbed their codes,
totally.
imitated their bodies. Because here's the thing. Tom basically kind of ripped off John Carpenter's remake of the Thing.
No, yeah, this movie is definitely inspired by it.
The
even mentioned it in the forums.
Yeah, the duplicates were even able to fool the surviving humans for a long time.
Yeah.
And again, there's subtleties. There's subtleties that the only people that would know those subtleties are the people involved. The rest of the world wouldn't know. So saying that they need one human alive doesn't make any sense when they could just kill them, take their identification and everything. Heck, they even controlled Kiryu.
Yeah, exactly.
And heck, even it fooled Zilla for quite a while.
Right.
Can I bring something?
Yeah, sure thing.
Oh yeah, during the Dr. Blair and Nick segment where the Millennium was absorbing his DNA, didn't he mention something about also getting his memories too?
Something about that, yeah. There's something reference to that, but yeah, there are a lot of holes in this particular match. Golly. But yeah, I do agree with Alex. It's like, as weird and gross as it would have been, like, yeah, a sexual attraction to Nick probably would have been the one good reason to keep him alive.
I think I could list probably like 10 better than that, but
I don't know. It's something. It's at least something.
Hey, it's progressive.
It's okay. For me, it's just kind of lacking on details, and that's the thing I can say mostly.
No, I think we could all agree on that. We're just saying that the whole needing him alive to get off Antarctica doesn't.
Yeah, and then there's other instances like, what is the conspiracy back home? Because like, there's a significant portion of this match which is focused on a conspiracy that is occurring back,
like at the Pentagon or something.
Yeah. So what's going on at the Pentagon? Like, and they're like, we know who they are. Let's get them. And like, so Orga's infiltrated them. So Orga is off.
It reminds me of a Michael Bay Transformers film when they try to do this conspiracy bullshit.
Oh yeah,
they've been here this whole time.
Right.
The Decepticons are here.
Yeah.
They have infiltrated our government. They even faked the moon landing for us.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah, there's issues like that just
really drag the match.
That really become apparent once you like look at this.
Yeah.
That's why I think looking back at this now, I think it's a weaker Tom match. I think Tom usually provides some great detail, but this one, it really drags down the match.
I agree. Even worse so than I'd say 108. Like 108 does a lot of preachy talk too, but I think even that I don't think is
108 does a lot of preachy talk, but it works back in Gora's meaning and it works back like the inner because it also focuses on one character, and I can see that character actually having that kind of dialogue. Yeah. In this situation, I cannot.
Right. There was nothing that really gelled organically here. So
no, 100%.
Yeah, this is definitely probably the weaker, if not, I'm going to probably go on a limb and say probably the weakest Tom match we've read. That's coming from me.
Yeah, no, I'd agree with that.
I would say it's tied with, was it the second half of 56?
Yeah, there's that. Right, the bag in half, possibly.
Then again, I'm not really...
Yeah, I know you're not much of a Tom dude, so I personally rank this as weaker than that.
I mean, it's like a lot of Tom matches, they have a lot of missed opportunities. Like I was saying with the second half of match 56, Orga should have been a vital part to that. Basically have Orga and Baggin fight over Baggin's body.
Yeah, totally.
That would have actually made a good reason why the Gauss didn't kill everyone right away, since, Baggin had control of them.
Yeah, exactly.
It's like you guys were saying, this 56 just has a lot of missed opportunities.
Right. There's a good idea in here, and I could see why he wanted to write it out, but there is something just missing. Completely missing.
Yeah. Something that's even related to my war. There's a lot of folks. I would say there's not much. I hate to say it, but it's very hard. At least for me, it was very hard.
Could you repeat that again? You kind of clipped out.
I was gonna say it's kind of for me. It's honestly very hard to have Nick. For me, at least, have an interesting inner dialogue. I find it way better when usually I find it easier to write Nick. I usually find it easier to write Nick in a supporting cat, like 275. Again, mind you, that's with a lot more writing experience under my belt, but that is honestly kind of where I think Nick works out. Yes.
Let him have it this time, Alex.
I'm not a dishonest person. Take that.
I had to read a Tom match, so let me have this. I'm gonna have to read another one tomorrow.
Yeah, you just get a lot of focus on Nick in this one, and I think it's just a little over-focused. I think it's way too much focus for Nick. But no, yeah. Regardless, I wouldn't say this match is terrible. I would just say it's just bad I'd just say it's kind of bad because it kind of messes up on the conspiracy. It messes up on what it tries to be interesting.
Yeah. And once again, the only highlights are really the monster parts. Those are done really well, but I don't think, sadly, I don't think the pros outweigh the cons in this scenario, even if the pros are really good. So, but that's just me. Shoot. Yeah. I guess Grayshot and I kind of gave our thoughts on it. I think we've probably covered
and Alex a little bit too.
Right. Alex, did you have any more to add, Alex, or you think you're good?
I kind of hated this, and not for the reason you would expect. It's kind of how I feel about a lot of Tom matches. The exception, not the rule. It's like, okay, when I really fucking hate this with Orga being able to, again, it's essentially the thing. As much as I'm not a fan of MM's matches, I can give him credit for at least coming up with an interesting way by combining Matango, Biolante, and Orga as being similar to the thing.
Yeah.
I respect that more because at least I know the writer's being creative with the restrictions as opposed to saying, "Oh, I'm gonna make Orga in name only by slapping the thing in behind it." That just comes off as lazy and just it's basically a cop out just to basically say, oh, it's Kiryu and Zilla versus the thing.
Right.
That I really hate. I know some people don't have a problem with that, but it's like when the KWC, when part of that thing is restrictions to, actually think outside the box and think things around with the guidelines set in front of it. One person or one person or two people should not be able to have that exception. It really just comes off as lazy. And I know I'm definitely bringing this up again in 133. I just find this awful, and it really kind of deters, detracts from any possible enjoyment I may have gotten out of this, because, like I said, this is just the thing. It's not Orga. And yeah, I will say, yeah, the monster fights are pretty nice, but I really hate that exception, not the rule. I'm fine with a lot of other things. I just hate that rule.
Mm-hmm.
So I guess I've said my little piece on it.
Fair enough.
My frustration. So, who's next?
All right, Nagoda. What'd you think of it?
Well, I'm more biased towards more story geared matches, so I like this one mostly because of the story. The fights are pretty fun too. What's it called? I'm blinking right now. I'm just gonna go to the banner because I can't remember what I was going to say. So, banner looks pretty good. There's an Orga hybrid for one. That's pretty cool. That image of Kiryu.
I think that was the first time there was an Orga hybrid.
An Orga hybrid on a banner, I believe.
Yep. Yeah, in a banner.
Yeah, I really like how the monsters are actually facing each other this time, instead of some of the other ones where they're just facing random locations.
Quick, get him here!
There's a feel like that.
There's a lot like that. Yeah, I mostly like this one for like the story and the plot elements.
Keyword being elements, anyway.
Mm-hmm.
So, Alex, do you ground your son?
Yeah.
For having an opinion, how could you?
It's bad influence. I'd rather see him drink and drive.
And
it'll be far less damaging than this.
Joe, what'd you think of it?
This was like the Matrix sequels of the KWC. This is the most convoluted match I think I've read. The fight was nice. Like Alex said, it's a complete rip-off of the thing. Like I said before, it was like reading a history book.
That was a great and hilarious comparison. I was like, that's great.
I'm sorry I missed that, Joe. I fell asleep during half of this.
Golly.
Damn.
No, I'm not actually lying. I did fall asleep.
Oh man, that's great. That is great.
Yeah, this one kind of sucked.
Mm-hmm. So,
just like those
Don't
Matrix
worry.
sequels.
So, do we all vote to destroy it on tonight's best of the worst?
Let's hold up until the next ones.
I'm gonna say destroy it.
Yep.
Hey, we still have 133.
Oh, we'll
That's too
destroy
much
that
of
one.
We
the
also have 135.
Well, we'll get there. We'll
yeah.
get there when we get there, ladies and gentlemen. In the does anyone have any final thoughts before we close out 130?
No more, Tom.
All right. Well, in the meantime, we'll see you guys later for match 131. Till then, everyone.
Help us.
See you guys later.